Novel Empire. Immortal God of Battle. Chapter 21 City Lord's Gift. Little brother, you have something to say. Xiang Zhonghua said with a strange tone. Xiang Nan ignored him and turned around to bow to Xiang Zhanxiong. Grandpa, can little Nan speak a few more words here? He said respectfully. Everyone secretly shouted in their hearts, hello. Xiang Nan straightened out his parents' seats to show his filial piety, and then used the respectful attitude that a clansman should have towards the clan leader to ask for the floor. This was equivalent to slapping the faces of those juniors in disguise. Those Xiang Nan peers had interrupted without restraint when the elders were talking just now, and they seemed to know very little about the rules. Xiang Zhanxiong was very pleased. He nodded and said, Little Nan, you can express your opinion. Our Xiang family understands the rules. Xiang Zhonghua and the others blushed when they heard this. Thus, Xiang Nan thanked his grandfather first, and then faced everyone with a serious expression. He swept his gaze over his clansmen and suddenly said, the Xiang clan was in trouble earlier. Grandpas and uncles, did you leave the Xiang clan reluctantly and take away all the property of the Xiang clan? Everyone's faces turned red when they heard this. The three great clans were led by the Wang clan. When they were about to annihilate the Xiang clan, all of them ran away. Xiang Nan continued, you all disappeared, leaving us alone to guard the Xiang clan. Have you ever thought of giving us a gold coin? Everyone was still speechless. Xiang Nan nodded, since that's the case, there's no need for little Nan to talk about the feelings of his clansmen. Let's talk about it when we have something to say. By escaping from the Xiang Manor, you are abandoning the Xiang Manor. The Xiang Manor belongs to my grandfather and my parents. You've taken so many things, but you didn't leave a single one behind. Since you came back today, you want to divide them up. Alright, I'll return half of what you took earlier. Grandfather, how many properties did they take with them? Everyone was shocked. Not only did Xiang Nan not give money to his clansmen, he even wanted money from his clansmen. Xiang Zhanxiong laughed loudly. At that time, the Xiang clan was already depressed. Everything was worth about 2.3 million gold coins. As for them, they took 2.2 million. Yes. Xiang Nan nodded and said, since you are a blood-related clansman, then spare change. Master, third master, and fourth master, if you want to share your family property, you can. Hand over 1 million gold coins. This is exactly half of what you asked for. The expressions of the various clansmen changed drastically. They all looked at the Great Elder in unison, hoping that the Great Elder would be able to solve this difficult problem. The Great Elder smiled coldly and said with a gloomy face, you want to share? Sure, we won't just give you 1 million gold coins, we'll give you 2,200,000 gold coins. These 2.2 million gold coins will be directly put into the Xiang clan's treasury, and then we will split it equally. What a scheme! At this moment, the Xiang clan had nearly 9 million in cash alone, and with the addition of 2,200,000 in half, they would be able to obtain nearly 6 million. A few elders were overjoyed when they heard this, and they thought to themselves, Xiang Nan is still young, after all, and he is not in the mood for it. Everyone smiled as they looked at Xiang Nan and saw how this brat had bound himself. Xiang Nan's smile did not diminish. Alright, that's settled. The Xiang clan probably only has 700 to 800 gold coins left, right? Xiang Zhanxiong immediately nodded and said, that's right. 700 to 800 gold coins plus 2.2 million gold coins. Let's split it equally. Please hand over 1 million gold coins, boss, Elder 3, Elder 4. What nonsense! Do you really think you can deceive us? At this moment, there are millions of gold coins in the Xiong clan. The great elder said angrily. It's 8.6 million, but it's all my money, not the Xiong family's money, Xiong Nan said with his hands behind his back. The scene suddenly became quiet. That's right, those were all Xiong Nan's private property money. The clan's branch properties were all divided from the clan treasury, and they weren't directly taken from the younger generation. The great elder suddenly panicked. He pointed at a large number of gifts and said, Then, can we at least split these? These are the things of the Xiong clan. Is that so? Xiong Nan calmly looked around at the guests and asked, May I ask everyone, are these gifts for my Xiong family or for me? At this time, the guests had already looked at Xiong Nan differently and were very satisfied. Naturally, they would not make things difficult for Xiong Nan. For a moment, everyone shouted, Of course it's for little Nan. All of the clansmen who had just returned were instantly ashen. Of course, the reason why they came to the Xiong clan to present gifts and make friends with each other was because they came for Xiong Nan. Xiong Nan smiled faintly. He extended his right hand and said to the first elder, Then, all of you, grandfather and uncle, if you still choose to return to the Xiong clan, please take out 1 million gold coins. If you refuse to take it out, then pack up your things and go back where you came from. Well said. Many guests applauded in succession. Although this scene in the Xiong clan had nothing to do with them, it was relieving to just watch from the side. The three elders glared at him angrily. They didn't expect that stealing chickens wouldn't erode rice. Divide or not? Xiong Nan's smile gradually turned cold. Everyone, look at me and look at you. All of them have bitter faces. They saw that the Xiong clan was about to rise, and they really wanted to return. At the same time, it was because they were really not doing well outside. However, if they came back, they would have to pay 1 million gold coins as a price, which was unacceptable to them. Lord City Lord is here. Right at this moment, the loud shouts of the city guard suddenly came from outside the door. Immediately after, a burly figure walked in laughing loudly. It was City Lord Hongzhen. Everyone on the scene moved aside and hurriedly bowed, Greetings, City Lord. Hongzhen waved his hand and laughed loudly, Everyone, you're welcome. Today, I'm here to deliver a gift. Gift? Even the City Lord came to present gifts. City Lord Hongzhen secretly gave Xiong Nan a thumbs up. Obviously, he had heard what Xiong Nan had just said. Then, Hongzhen said, I came here specifically for Xiong Nan alone. As for my gift, it's very simple. As long as it's Xiong Nan's words, all the shops that the Xiong clan opens in Bluestone City in the next 3 years will be exempt from tax. Furthermore, they will receive all support policies. Once these words were spoken, the entire audience erupted into an uproar. Tax exemption for 3 years. How much is that? More importantly, all support policies. With the City Lord's guarantee, the Xiong clan would be able to reopen their property. That was to say, they would have a smooth journey and be able to ignite their flames in the wind. While everyone was dumbfounded, the City Lord threw another bomb. The City Lord asked Xiong Nan, Little Nan, the Xiong clan has already transferred all their shops in order to make a living, right? Indeed, Xiong Nan nodded. The City Lord said, the new urban area of Bluestone City has just been completed recently. Then I will draw a boundary for the Xiong clan to use as an industrial area. In the first 5 years, the Xiong clan didn't spend a penny. They would first use it for 5 years. After 5 years, they would return the rent they owed for the first 5 years, okay? If the gift in front of the city lord made everyone envious, then this gift would really make everyone's eyes turn red. New city. Let's use it for 5 years first. Chapter 22 Lightning Shock. That piece of land was crammed into countless people's heads, and they wanted to rent a small piece of land. Not to mention they could owe it for the first 5 years, even if they gave it money, they might not be able to get it. Xiang Zhanxiong looks up at the starry sky and sighs in his heart that the spring of our Xiang clan has come. Someone. The great elder gave the order and shouted, "Take 1,000,000 gold coins and hand it over to the patriarch." First elder immediately recognized the situation. What was 1,000,000 gold coins? With the promise of the city lord, 10 of them would be able to earn back 1,000,000. Even if one of their clansmen gave them 1,000,000 gold coins, they would directly hand it over to Xiang Zhanxiong. After Xiang Zhanxiong received the money, he remained silent for a long time, but everyone was on pins and needles, depending on Xiang Zhanxiong's opinion. After a while, Xiang Zhanxiong let out a long sigh and said, "Forget it, since you want to come back, then come back." Many clansmen hurriedly bowed in gratitude. This time, they were convinced and did not complain at all. Brother Zhanxiong. The city lord laughed loudly and walked forward, saying, "It's been a long time since we've met. I'm not leaving today. Let's drink until dawn. We're not leaving anymore. Let's celebrate with the city lord." Many guests expressed their opinions. This was a good opportunity to get close to the city lord. Good, good, good. Xiang Zhanxiong was very spirited and waved his hand. Good wine and good food greets the dawn. This night laid a solid foundation for the rise of the Xiang clan. That night, Xiang Nan's name shook Bluestone City. Everyone knew that a 16-year-old youth had relied on extraordinary strength and courage to pull the Xiang clan back from the brink of death. Saying this was simply a bit of a fantasy, but the truth was that it was so dramatic. To Xiang Nan, this was just a small starting point. Afterwards, the Xiang clan officially went on the right track, mainly because Xiang Nan brought back a large amount of gold coins as a foundation, allowing the Xiang clan to regroup. Xiang Zhanxiong personally presided over the arrangements for the clansmen, and then started to get busy like a raging fire. On the other side, Xiang Nan didn't slack off at all. He didn't waste a minute, spending all of his time to increase his strength. This was because he knew very well that the Xiang clan was not strong enough and could be suppressed by the 3 great clans at any time. A month later, the selection of the martial arts city was the key to the Xiang clan's solid footing. Wang Xiaoyun had to get a good result before he could be chosen by an outstanding sect. At that time, Wang Xiaoyun would not dare to touch the Xiang clan. Otherwise, without the support of the sect, the Xiang clan would be devoured by the Wang clan in a minute. After all, this was a world where martial power reigned supreme. In the Black Sharp Mountain Range, in a secret woodland. After 2 hours of cultivation, Xiang Nan spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He raised his right hand slightly, and a ball of early weather was slowly beating in his palm. As he refined the remaining medicinal pill power in his body, he muttered to himself, "There is still 1 month left before the martial arts city selection." As for the city selection, the age limit for the contestants has been relaxed to 20 years old. I'm afraid that there will be some Xiantian 8th level or even 9th level experts at that time. As for me, I'm only at the Xiantian 1st stage. It won't be easy for me to fight them. Xiang Nan's expression was solemn. Although his lightning meridian talent could erupt with 3 times its maximum strength, it could only erupt 3 times. These 3 eruptions could defeat 3 peak Xiantian realm experts, then what? At that time, even a Xiantian first-stage cultivator would be able to easily kill him. Therefore, in order to win the city election battle, one could not rely solely on the heaven-defying attributes of the lightning vein. Only solid strength was a hard method. It's time to practice that half of the broken book. The remaining half of the book was temporarily named Fire Lightning Technique by Xiang Nan. He didn't know what grade this fire lightning technique belonged to, but Xiang Nan knew that the power of this technique was astonishing. At least, it was above the high-grade spiritual grade. It might even be an earth-grade cultivation technique that surpassed spirit grade. Xiang Nan raised his right hand slightly. A crystal blue dot the size of a grain of rice floated in the center of his palm. It was exceptionally dazzling. On that day, I was in the city lord's mansion to test my skills. It's not clear how powerful this ring of fire was. Xiang Nan thought for a moment and named this move Thunderclap. I'd like to see just how powerful this Thunderclap is. With that thought in mind, Xiang Nan circulated the Xiantian Qi in his Dantian and quickly converted it into lightning power. Then, he used the lightning vibration art to hold this power in his right hand. In this way, he felt that his previous weather was being sucked away like a whale absorbing water. His right fist actually shone with a dazzling crystal blue light, but what was even more shocking was that Xiang Nan felt that he could no longer control this power, as if he was carrying a mountain on his back. Shit! Xiang Nan's pupils constricted and he exclaimed, I didn't expect the complete power of the thunderclap to be so great. I must release it immediately, otherwise, my body will explode and die. Xiang Nan didn't have time to think about it, so he immediately jumped up and punched heavily on the ground. Crystal blue lightning energy poured out. Following Xiang Nan's punch, the crystal blue lightning energy instantly transformed into a giant crystal blue ring of fire. Boom! The entire earth trembled from this punch, and the terrifying crystal blue flames scattered like waves. Xiang Nan could only feel a blue light in front of him. The ring of flames roared, roaring furiously, tearing apart everything that had happened to him. The deafening explosions that filled the mountains and fields were even mixed with the faint howls of tigers. After the blue light in the sky disappeared, the scene in front of him shocked Xiang Nan, who had seen a lot of things. Is this really caused by a Xiantian first-stage martial artist? Xiang Nan's eyes widened in disbelief. It was a hemispherical crater with a diameter of 10 meters. The outer edge of the crater was a radial pattern that spread in all directions. Xiang Nan stood at the core of the giant crater. What was even more terrifying was that an entire radius of 1 mile had been razed to the ground. The trees and rocks were all gone. The ground was flat and smooth. Looking down from above, it was a neat circular clearing. Only at the edge of the radiation zone, a mile away, could one see intact trees and rocks. Xiang Nan took a few deep breaths, his mood unable to calm down for a long time. This fire and lightning technique is definitely an earth-level technique. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. That's right, it was at least an earth-level technique. At the very least, it was an earth-grade cultivation technique that could trigger a heaven and earth phenomenon, and when he released Thunderclap earlier, he clearly heard the roar of a tiger. No, it's not suitable to stay here for long. Retreat. Xiang Nan calmed his emotions and immediately ran into the distance. With such a big move, he would definitely disturb the martial arts experts of the nearby towns. If anyone found out that he, Xiang Nan, had created this open space, the consequences would be unimaginable. As he sprinted, Xiang Nan was thinking about another question. His previous weather wasn't enough to consume thunderclaps. The thunderclap waves did not display their full power at all. It was precisely because his previous weather was too little that he drained all of his previous weather at once. Chapter 23 by Yen Blazing Lightning. After Xiang Nan ran a long distance and confirmed that he was safe, he finally stopped. This won't do. Xiang Nan leaned against an ancient tree and looked down at his hands. My strength is still there, but the weather was drained in one bite. Without the Xiantian martial artists of Xiantian, their strength will be greatly weakened. This is not the result I hope to see. He calmly analyzed the situation and found the crux of the problem. This thunderclap was like a car, and his strength was equivalent to an ox. Obviously, he was now a little cow pulling a big cart, and his initial weather was too little, so he had to hurry up and raise his cultivation level. What a pity. Xiang Nan shook his head. That fire lightning technique is only half a damaged book. There is only one skill in it, but there is no body refinement or qigong technique. Skill moves were only used for battles. Only body refinement and qigong techniques could be used to raise a martial artist's realm. Choosing between body refinement or qigong techniques could both raise a martial artist's realm. His own characteristic was the power of thunder and lightning, so it was obvious that qi condensation was more suitable for him. However, at this moment, Xiang Nan thought of something else. He muttered, speaking of lightning-attributed qi refining techniques, the 9 transformations of thunder is definitely the strongest in the world. Since I don't have a fire and lightning technique, I can use the 9 transformations of thunder to replace it. As he spoke, Xiang Nan took out a yellow talisman paper from his storage ring. This was the lightning talisman that sealed the 17th place on the divine lightning rankings, White Flame Lightning. Xiang Nan sat down cross-legged and threw the lightning talisman into the air. What was amazing was that the lightning talisman actually floated in midair without falling. Xiang Nan's expression was hesitant. He thought to himself that the minimum requirement for cultivating the 9 transformations of thunder was the Xiantian realm. He didn't know if he could withstand it, so he decided to give it a try. After finishing his plan, he first swallowed a small pill. This pill was not a medicinal pill, but was made by grinding the first-grade spring return grass. As the pill entered his stomach, the medicinal properties of the spiritual herbs slowly spread out. Xiang Nan was bathed in a warm atmosphere. In less than a cup of tea, all of his previous weather had recovered. Thus, after making complete preparations, Xiang Nan took a deep look at the lightning talisman in midair, and then silently circulated the 9 transformations of thunder incantation in his heart. He possessed a rare divine grade lightning meridian talent. This formidable talent allowed him to have an incomparable affinity for lightning attribute techniques. The profound and mysterious 9 transformations of thunder were actually circulated extremely smoothly by Xiang Nan, as if a fish was getting water. After the incantation successfully entered a circle, the air around Xiang Nan fluctuated, and the lightning talisman floating in the air began to tremble. The lightning talisman sensed the summoning of the 9 transformations of thunder art. Strange white arcs of lightning quickly spread out from the surface of the talisman paper. The white arcs were densely packed together and interweaved into a power grid, causing the land to form a vacuum belt. The surrounding trees were attracted to the ground and flew towards the lightning talisman one after another. However, the moment the trees touched the white lightning arc, they turned into powder. Seeing this scene, Xiang Nan was shocked. That was the source of the divine lightning. It was definitely not a joke. However, he gritted his teeth. Since he was ready to fight, he couldn't stop. Thinking of this, Xiang Nan immediately waved his hand, drawing only a white lightning arc from the countless lightning arcs on the lightning talisman. The moment the white lightning bolt touched Xiang Nan's body, it quickly merged into his body. In that instant, Xiang Nan's entire body was bounced up by lightning. His limbs were incomparably stiff, and he was unable to move at all. However, he could clearly feel the overbearing power of Bai Yen lightning rampaging through his body. The terrifying white flame lightning filled Xiang Nan's entire body. At that moment, Xiang Nan was very worried that he would go crazy because he couldn't bear it. But then, a scene that frightened Xiang Nan appeared. He felt that the white lightning bolt had been refined by the 9 transformations thunder-shocking cultivation technique and transformed into power that fused into his body. At the same time, his realm began to explode. That speed was out of Xiang Nan's control. This, my realm. Xiang Nan's eyes flashed brightly. Xiantian second layer. Breakthrough. The realm that he could only improve by assisting with high-grade pills and diligently cultivating was actually crossed because he had only absorbed a bolt of lightning from the white flames. However, he had only consumed 1/10 of the energy of that lightning arc when he advanced from the first level of the Xiantian realm to the second level of the Xiantian realm. There was more stored in his body. If he did not quickly think of a way to consume the remaining lightning power, then what it would bring him would not be help, but destruction. However, his realm had just risen, and his body was in a full state. He didn't know if he could hold on to it even if he raised it once more. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth. He was truly reluctant to disperse this precious energy, so he forcefully continued to absorb it. He felt like his body was being blown up like a balloon, growing bigger and bigger, becoming fuller and fuller. He was about to reach the limit of what his body could withstand. At this time, the energy of the white flame lightning allowed Xiang Nan to break free from the bindings of his realm once again, and his realm soared in a straight line. Xiantian third layer. However, 80% of the lightning bolt's energy was still left. I can't. I've reached my limit. Xiang Nan immediately gave up on advancing his cultivation. This was because every time a martial artist advanced a realm, it would take a period of time for their bodies to adapt to the new realm. However, there was still too much white flame lightning in his body. Xiang Nan thought of how to dissipate the remaining energy. He suddenly took a step forward and punched heavily into the sky. He roared, "Thunderclap!" The thunderclap waves from this punch had actually drained all of the excess energy in his body. The thunderclap was blasted into an incomparably large fan-shaped light that shot straight into the 9 heavens. This time, the power of the thunderclap was more than 10 times greater than the previous time. Even half of the sky was reflected in crystal blue. The roar of a tiger in the sky was unexpectedly deafening. Who? He took a few deep breaths in succession, shocked by the terrifying divine lightning. This was too scary. He had only pulled out a small arc of lightning and created such a terrifying situation. What if he absorbed the entire white flame lightning? At the same time, that thunderclap was too abnormal. So many remnants of the lightning power in his body were still drained by the shock of the lightning. Xiang Nan couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. What kind of realm did he need to level up to before he could release thunderclap twice? Let's test it now. My weather first. Xiang Nan closed his eyes and checked the weather in his dantian. Xiang Nan abruptly opened his eyes and said happily, "My current Xiantian storage is actually 3 times that of the Xiantian first stage." Under normal circumstances, every time a Xiantian realm martial artist leveled up, the Xiantian weather in their dantian would only increase their storage by half, and every time they leveled up, they would double their storage. In other words, just by looking at the amount of storage in the first layer of the weather, if he were to increase his cultivation by 1 layer, it would be equivalent to someone else's cultivation by 2 layers. That's horrible. This was the astonishing thing about the 9 transformations of thunder. He hurriedly rushed away. After leaving this place far away, he spent half a day to adapt his body to the 3rd level of the Xiantian realm, and then continued to improve. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately sat down cross-legged, and the 9 transformations of thunder formula began to circulate again. He cautiously drew a white arc according to his previous method and merged it into his body. However, what happened this time was something that Xiang Nan hadn't expected. The white lightning bolt did not increase his cultivation like it did the previous time. Rather, the power of the white flame blazing lightning actually began to directly attack Xiang Nan's body. Xiang Nan let out a muffled snort, and his entire body actually floated into the air from the ground. That white arc of lightning split into countless threads of lightning that seemed to wrap around him like a round ball of lightning. Every inch of his skin was under the electric shock of the white flames and lightning. Chapter 24 Treasure Gathering Pavilion. He felt his blood boil. All the bones in his body were howling in pain, and his muscles were spasming. No. We must persevere, we must persevere. Xiang Nan clenched his teeth. However, the situation did not improve as he had imagined. Instead, it became even worse. He even felt his skin begin to crack and even break apart. Shit! Aware of the seriousness of the problem, Xiang Nan was unable to endure the indescribable pain anymore, so he quickly disbanded the 9 transformations of thunder's incantation and circulated it. In an instant, the white lightning shattered and dissipated in the sky. As for Xiang Nan, he fell to the ground from midair. During the entire time he spent drinking a cup of tea, he was convulsed by pain. Only after drinking a cup of tea did he recover. How could it be like this? How could it be like this? Xiang Nan frowned and gently rubbed his joints. Right. He suddenly understood that the reason why he had absorbed the lightning bolts of the white flame lightning for the first time was because he did not possess the attributes of the lightning bolt in his body. That was why the power of the lightning bolt had increased his cultivation by leaps and bounds. However, the second time the arc was absorbed, the increase was not in quantity, but in quality. If the first bolt of lightning he absorbed was only 1,000th of the power of the white flame lightning, then the second bolt of lightning he absorbed could reach 2 or 3 thousandths of the power of the white flame lightning. In other words, every time he absorbed a bolt of lightning from the white flames in the future, the attribute power of the lightning in his body would rise to a higher level. Just now, I was almost fatal because I was unable to withstand the stronger power of the lightning. There are only 2 ways to solve this problem, Xiang Nan said as he rubbed his hands. First, raise my cultivation level. Second, increase my resistance to electricity. What's troublesome is that there is no formula to improve one's resistance to electricity in the 9 transformations of thunder. Xiang Nan sighed. The Thunder Martial King had created the 9 transformations of thunder in the heavenly tribulation realm. Naturally, he didn't need to improve his resistance to electricity, and he didn't write a solution to this matter into his cultivation method. His divine grade lightning meridian talent also had a very abnormal resistance to electricity. If it wasn't for this talent, he would have been shattered when he absorbed the first bolt of lightning. There's no other way. I can only think of a way to solve it myself. To improve one's resistance to electricity, one couldn't use qi condensation to solve it. That required body refinement. Xiang Nan nodded, took out a paper and brush from his storage ring, and wrote down a paragraph of text. 2nd grade snow cicada grass, 2nd grade thunder vine, 2nd grade rejuvenation pill, second grade blood condensation grass, second grade stone skin pill, spirit grade pill furnace. Xiang Nan looked at the words and was satisfied. In his previous life, he knew many strange and capable people, some of whom his master called strange and disdainful to associate with. However, at that time, Bai Mukin's nature was carefree, but he didn't care about these things. Among the people he knew was a peculiar alchemist. That person had once mentioned a method of body refinement. That is, using the method of refining pills to allow martial artists to refine their bodies. Put a martial artist into a pill furnace like a pill. This idea could not be said to be unbold, but Xiang Nan felt that it was very feasible. Although this wasn't a body refining technique, it could increase his resistance to electricity and achieve his goal. I already have a Tier 2 rejuvenation pill, a Tier 2 blood coagulation grass, and a Tier 2 stone skin pill. Although I don't have any, the main ingredients for the stone skin pill can be found in my storage ring. Xiang Nan pondered, right now, we can only find Tier 2 snow cicada grass, thunderbolt vine, and spirit grade pill furnaces. Looks like we need to go to the Azure Stone City's auction house. Apart from the pill furnace, although the other two were not pills, they were only spirit herbs, but because they were too rare, they should not be found in ordinary spirit herb shops. Thinking of this, Xiang Nan was unwilling to rest and immediately set off. In this troubled autumn, Xiang Nan knew that his identity was sensitive, so he made a simple disguise. He wore a loose black robe and covered his nose and mouth with a black cloth. Fortunately, Blue Stone City was close to the Black Sharp Mountain Range. Normally, there were many hunters, herb gatherers, and various caravans in the city. In this kind of place, there were many people who covered their faces to avoid unnecessary battles. Xiang Nan's outfit, which covered his figure and appearance, did not attract much attention. Sure enough, as soon as he entered Blue Stone City, he heard people discussing about the blue phenomenon in the sky. Some people said that it must be a martial arts expert cultivating nearby. I heard that many experts from the clans have gone to the back mountain to look for that expert. This caused Xiang Nan to lower his hood a little. Experts, those people definitely can't be found. How could they know that such a terrifying phenomenon was created by this young boy Xiang Nan? However, Xiang Nan searched the city until dusk. He could be said to have visited all the famous spirit herb shops, but he couldn't find the snow cicada grass and thunderclap vine. However, the spirit pill furnace was already available, so it wasn't difficult to find this item. As for the two spiritual herbs, it seemed that he could only try his luck at the auction house. However, buying things at the auction house was likely to cost a large sum of money. At this time, Xiang Nan didn't have much cash on him, so he gave it all to his grandfather. The Xiang clan was now at a critical juncture in their comeback. He did not want to ask for money from his grandfather. Fortunately, he still had quite a few spirit herb pills and precious calligraphy and paintings on him. He could use them to exchange for money. The only auction house in Bluestone City was just about to start a large-scale auction. This place was called the Treasure Gathering Pavilion. Behind these three golden characters, there was a small pattern. When others saw the pattern, they didn't feel anything, but when Xiang Nan saw it, he was shocked. It was a clover logo. This logo represented an ancient mysterious clan in this world, the Huanpu aristocrat clan. The scope of this clan's business covered almost all fields. Just how enormous it was and how much energy it hid were still a mystery. Xiang Nan only knew that this clan definitely could not be easily offended. Even the people from the 8 great sects had to be respectful when they saw the upper echelons of the Huanpu aristocrat clan. Their hands have actually reached such a remote corner. Xiang Nan hesitated for a moment before walking in. In any case, he was here to openly buy things. How strong this Huanpu aristocrat clan was had nothing to do with him. There were 2 exhibition halls in the Jutsai Pavilion auction house, and there were 6 auction halls of all sizes. Today, the largest auction hall was opened. The exhibition hall was responsible for displaying the items that were about to be auctioned off. It had already ended 3 days ago, and Xiang Nan had not caught up. Therefore, this time, it was just a blind cat trying to kill a mouse. It was all due to luck. The auction hall was already filled with people, and the buyers who came were all silent, their expressions extremely solemn. Although no one knew the Huanpu aristocrat clan in this small place, everyone knew that the treasure-gathering pavilion was built by a large foreign clan. Therefore, even the local wealthy didn't dare to make a mistake here. Very quickly, the oppressive scene slowly became lively. An auctioneer walked up to the exhibition platform and greeted the buyers politely. Then, he began to auction the first treasure. Xiang Nan glanced at the treasure and landed on a woman beside the auctioneer. Normally, there would be 2 assistants next to the auctioneer, but that woman was obviously not an assistant. She was just standing there for no apparent reason. Xiang Nan frowned and quietly sensed that the woman's identity was extraordinary. This woman wore a black veil and could not see her appearance clearly. The key was that there was not a single trace of spiritual energy fluctuation in her body. But Xiang Nan knew that she was definitely a martial artist. Her spiritual energy fluctuations are suppressed very ingeniously. Xiang Nan nodded silently, knowing that this woman was a master that could not be provoked. But at this moment, the woman caught Xiang Nan's gaze amidst the countless gazes of the audience. The 2's gazes collided in the air. Xiang Nan pretended to look away as if nothing had happened, but the woman nodded slightly, appearing extremely cultured. Chapter 25 Broken Knife. What a keen perception! Xiang Nan thought to himself, and couldn't help but think a little more highly of that woman. The first item to be auctioned was a mid-grade spirit weapon. The starting bid was 50,000 gold coins. The buyers on the scene all bid. The buyers who came to participate in the auction were all wealthy businessmen from the 6 towns. The upper echelons of the clans were also very generous. This inadvertently increased the pressure on Xiang Nan. Very quickly, the first weapon fell into the hands of the Mo clan in Bluestone Town. The second item was a calligraphy and painting. The starting bid was 50,000 gold coins, which was equivalent to the price of a first-grade medicinal pill. However, Xiang Nan's attention was not on the auction item. He always felt that there was a pair of eyes that were secretly observing him intentionally or unintentionally. When he followed that gaze and captured it back, he discovered that it was still the same woman. However, the woman looked elsewhere and dodged in a timely manner. Xiang Nan became more cautious and began to pay more attention to the woman. The following auction process was very lively. People often bid up the price to an unbelievable height in order to compete for the same item. The result of Xiang Nan's secret observation was that the woman was observing the buyers all the time, not knowing what her purpose was. Finally, the 8th item was actually the second-grade snow cicada grass that Xiang Nan wanted. The auctioneer smiled at the crowd. Second-grade snow cicada grass. The starting bid is 30,000 gold coins. Every time the bid is increased, it will start at least 5,000 gold coins. Hearing this, many buyers were shocked. The average price of a Tier 2 spirit grass was 3,000 gold coins, but this Tier 2 snow cicada grass cost 30,000 gold coins. It was still the starting price. Thus, the problem arose. Originally, Many people didn't know what this snow cicada grass was, but when they heard that its starting bid was so high, they were all curious. Someone raised his hand on the spot, 40,000. The auctioneer smiled in that direction. This buyer is bidding 40,000 yuan. Is there anything higher? Xiang Nan frowned and raised his right hand, but did not bid. The auctioneer nodded and pointed in Xiang Nan's direction. This buyer offers 45,000 gold coins. In the end, the buyers bid one after another. In just half a cup of tea, the snow cicada grass was actually lifted to 100,000 gold coins. This was the last thing Xiang Nan wanted to see. This was a vicious circle. Everyone was curious about the unknown, and the more people rushed to buy this mysterious snow cicada grass, the higher the price would be. Higher prices attract greater curiosity. 150,000. Someone shouted loudly. The price was already ridiculously high. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and raised his hand again to bid 155,000 yuan. 150,000 was no longer a small number. It was enough to buy 3 mid-grade spirit weapons. Many people had given up at this time. However, there were still more than 20 families in 6 towns competing. 200,000. Someone made a bid. Xiang Nan was determined to obtain the snow cicada grass. He couldn't allow everyone to pay such a high price. He had to give them a high enough price to intimidate them. Thinking of this, Xiang Nan raised his hand in pain and lowered his voice as low and hoarse as possible, 400,000. As soon as the price was announced, the entire arena fell silent. This time, no one bid again. 400,000 yuan for a second-grade spirit herb, isn't that crazy? Such an astronomical price was almost enough to buy a Tier 2 spirit pill. After the auctioneer asked the crowd, he saw that no one was bidding and decided on the spot. The snow cicada grass returned to Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Under normal circumstances, the snow cicada grass was only worth 40,000 to 50,000 gold coins. However, there was no other way. Who would have thought that there was only such a single plant here? To be honest, Xiang Nan wasn't interested in the next auction item, so he didn't bid anymore. He just waited for the auction to end before trading. There were a total of 25 items in the auction. After all the items were sold, Xiang Nan was ready to go backstage to trade. But at this moment, the woman who had been silently standing beside the auctioneer suddenly walked towards the exhibition stand. But also replaced the position of auctioneer. She took out an item from her storage ring and placed it on the exhibition stand. For the first time, she said, "This is a knife." Hearing this, the originally orderly scene immediately became restless. It wasn't because of the knife, but because of the woman's voice. People often use the sound of nature to describe a person's voice, but what exactly is the sound of nature? I'm afraid no one has really heard of it. However, if there really was a heavenly voice in the world, then this mysterious woman's voice would definitely be considered one. Xiang Nan was also shocked by the woman's voice, but his eyes were quickly attracted by the saber. It was a very strange saber. The length of the blade was 3 meters, which was considered too long for ordinary people. The blade was pitch black without any reflection, as if it was carved out of a piece of carbon. There were strange patterns on the blade. At first glance, this saber was too heavy, too large, and ordinary. It could even be said to be too simple. However, when Xiang Nan saw the blade, the lightning meridian attribute in his body suddenly changed. Saber. Xiang Nan was shocked and thought to himself, "That blade is strange. My lightning meridian attribute can actually sense it." Buy this knife no matter what. At this moment, the woman pressed her hands down, signaling everyone to shut up. This saber is a low-grade weapon of the mortal stage. The starting bid is 1 million gold coins. The scene became even more restless. Just now, everyone's restlessness was shocked by the sound of the woman's voice. Now, the restlessness was shocked by the sky-high price of this saber. What does a low-grade mortal realm mean? That meant that this saber was no different from a saber forged from ordinary steel. This kind of shitty thing could be bought for a dozen or 20 silver coins. As a result, the scene was noisy, but there wasn't even a single bidder. No one could see anything special about this saber. The woman seemed to have no intention of introducing it at all, but her eyes curved as she swept across the crowd. Obviously, her face was smiling under the black veil. Is anyone bidding? The woman's eyes swept through the crowd, still maintaining a calm and elegant demeanor. Xiang Nan was worried in his heart. At this moment, his bid had become the focus of everyone's attention. However, he really wanted that saber. Not to mention 1 million gold coins, even if it was 2 million, 3 million, Xiang Nan would definitely buy a saber that could cause the lightning vein attribute to feel stress. Seeing that the woman had already stretched out her hand, she wanted to take back her saber. Xiang Nan sighed helplessly and raised his hand. 1 million, I want it. At this moment, countless pairs of eyes on the scene aimed at Xiang Nan. An unusual splendor quickly flashed through the woman's eyes, and that splendid gaze disappeared in an instant. Ha! Someone really fell for this trick. Someone finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Others echoed, yes, this broken saber costs 100 silver coins. Xiang Nan ignored everyone's mockery and sat down calmly. The auctioneer stepped forward and smiled. This auction is officially over. VIP bidders, please come and trade later. Chapter 26 Mysterious Woman. Behind the auction hall, there was a long corridor. On both sides of the corridor were a number of small trading halls that contained the treasures that had been auctioned off. Xiang Nan followed a maid to the 10th trading hall and pushed open the door. There were only 2 people inside. One was the mysterious black-veiled woman, while the other was a teenage girl. The little girl looked like she was carved out of jade. Her pair of big black eyes shone brightly, her small nose was cute, and her snow-white skin was like a porcelain doll. She was dressed in brocade-clothed mink fur, and her large furry collar made her even more exquisite and cute. However, it was a bit too exaggerated to wear such thick clothes at this time of year. The little girl rippled her legs playfully. She took out a small piece of translucent pastries from an exquisite plate and put it into her mouth. She bit her head and tilted her head as she looked at Xiang Nan curiously. The black-veiled woman still did not take off her veil. She dotingly stroked the little girl's black hair and spoiled her. Do you want some water? Don't choke. The little girl grinned like the sun. Xiang Nan hesitated for a moment, then said, I'm here to take the things I took, but... The woman's eyes curved and she smiled as she asked, but what? But I don't have any cash. Xiang Nan shook his head and said, can I exchange it for something else? As he spoke, Xiang Nan took out a calligraphy and painting from his storage ring. This was the best and most expensive calligraphy and painting he had preserved, and it was even better than the one he had given to the city lord earlier. Xiang Nan said, this calligraphy painting is worth about 2 million gold coins. It is extremely difficult to find a similar level in the market. I will use it to offset 1.5 million gold coins. How about it? Xiang Nan's actions were equivalent to a loss of 500,000 yuan, but who knew that the woman would shake her head with a smile? Xiang Nan frowned. 2 million for 1.5 million, you're not even going to change. The woman smiled and said, I only want cash. Xiang Nan took a deep breath. He could tell that this woman was clearly making things difficult for him. As a businessman of an auction house, how could he not take advantage of it? All right. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and said, wait for me. 2 hours later, I'll take the money to buy it. The woman shook her head and said, if you want to buy it, trade it face to face. After 2 hours, I won't sell it. This knife is my personal belongings. It doesn't violate the rules of the auction house. The little girl giggled as she listened to the two of them. Her voice was as crisp as a pair of bronze bells. As for Xiang Nan, he couldn't help but say in a low voice, what do you mean? Tell me clearly. The woman stroked the black saber and glanced at Xiang Nan intentionally or unintentionally. You have to tell me why you bought this saber. Xiang Nan's heart sounded an alarm. Could it be that this woman knew that this saber could sense the attributes of thunder meridians? However, he said, it's just a personal preference. The woman shook her head, you're too disingenuous to say that. I won't sell the saber anymore. Xiang Nan felt that this woman was not simple, but if he really wanted to tell him why he bought the knife, it would be impossible. Lightning meridian talent was rare in the world, how could it be exposed for a saber? Immediately, Xiang Nan took out another painting and said, this painting is worth about 700,000 gold coins. It's for a second-grade snow cicada grass. After saying that, Xiang Nan picked up the snow cicada grass and left. The snow cicada grass was a treasure that was auctioned by the auction house. Xiang Nan had decided on a purchase contract after bidding. Women could not stop Xiang Nan. After leaving the auction house, Xiang Nan quickened his pace, wanting to leave this place as soon as possible. He always felt that the mysterious woman had other plans. Along the way, he quietly changed into his normal clothes. When he returned to his room, he found his mother waiting at a table with a steaming bowl of ginseng soup on it. Mother. In Xiang Nan's mind, memories and emotions belonging to the real Xiang Nan appeared, causing him to involuntarily use the intimate term, mother, instead of the word, mother. Mother kindly pulled Xiang Nan to sit down beside her. She stroked Xiang Nan's temples and said softly, Mother has cooked a bowl of ginseng soup for you. It has been 3 hours. Nan should take advantage of the heat to drink it. Xiang Nan watched his mother recover from her long illness and her slightly pale face. He immediately felt a choke in his throat and a sour nose. He hurriedly said, the child is in good health. Mother, drink it. The mother lovingly said, silly child, in recent years, the Xiang clan has fallen into a state of despair, which has made you suffer. Mother's heart aches when she sees it. Mother, stop talking. Xiang Nan couldn't help but hug her mother. Xiang Nan, who had never experienced maternal love in his previous life, couldn't help but feel his eyes turn red, and tears rolled in his eyes. He only felt that this life was worth it. Even if he didn't have any divine talent or lightning meridian attributes, just having a loving mother was enough. Her mother patted Xiang Nan's back gently as if she had coaxed him when he was a child. Nan, come, drink the soup. Xiang Nan shook his head. Mother doesn't drink, and neither do I. Mother didn't know whether to laugh or cry, then I'll drink half of it, Nan, okay? All right. Xiang Nan withdrew from his mother's embrace and quickly wiped his eyes. Mother drank half a bowl of ginseng soup and looked at Xiang Nan happily as he drank half a bowl of ginseng soup. Only then did she bloom with a happy smile. This half bowl of soup was probably the most delicious ginseng soup Xiang Nan had ever tasted in his previous life. At this moment, in the courtyard outside Xiang Nan's room, there was an ancient tree. The crescent moon curved. Through the moonlight, one could vaguely see that there was a woman standing on the tree. She was the mysterious woman of the conglomerate pavilion auction house. The woman could clearly see what was happening in the room. Her eyes were slowly filled with a layer of gentle light. Right. In the room, Mother said to Xiang Nan, "Your grandfather and the others are looking for you." I almost forgot. Nan will go over after a rest. Mother will leave first. Alright, I'll send Mother out. Xiang Nan escorted her mother out of the door and glanced at the tree, but it was empty. Later, he hurried to his grandfather's room. In Grandpa's study, the three elders of the family, his father, and some uncles were discussing. Xiang Nan came in and found a seat to sit and listen. Originally, there wasn't a seat for a junior like Xiang Nan here, but because Xiang Nan had made a special contribution to the Xiang family, Xiang Nan also listened to what had happened in the family recently. After listening to the elders' conversation, Xiang Nan finally knew the whole story. The city lord did draw a plot of land for the Xiang clan in the newly completed new city, but if that place was to be put into use, it would take at least 1 to 2 years. In this short period of time, the Xiang clan could not remain idle, so they wanted to buy back the property that originally belonged to the Xiang clan in the old city. Unfortunately, this matter was obstructed by the three great clans of Bluestone Town. No matter how much the Xiang clan wanted to buy back the property, the three great clans increased their prices even more. Bullying. Xiang Xiaohua slammed the table angrily. They are clearly going to cut off our Xiang clan's path of retreat. Chapter 27. Try to refine pills. Whether it was Xiang Nan or by Mukin in his previous life, they were not proficient in business matters. Therefore, although the elders were filled with righteous indignation, Xiang Nan had no choice but to listen to them from the side. Little Nan. Xiang Xiaohua suddenly turned to look at Xiang Nan and said, "The city lord thinks highly of you. See if you can, let the city lord talk to you. This is the only chance for our Xiang clan to rise. If we can't get the deeds to the houses and land of those shops, our Xiang clan will. Alright, I'll discuss it with the city lord tomorrow." Xiang Nan knew that this matter was of great importance, so he could only do so. After receiving Xiang Nan's reply, the faces of the elders of the clan became much more relaxed. At this moment, no one dared to make things difficult for Xiang Nan at all. It could also be said that the Xiang clan now relied on Xiang Nan alone. Alright, let's stop here. Little Nan, stay here. Everyone else, go back. Xiang Zhanxiong waved his hand, leaving Xiang Nan alone. After everyone had left, Xiang Zhanxiong lowered his voice and said, "Little Nan, your martial arts cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds recently. What exactly is going on?" Xiang Nan knew that he couldn't conceal this matter, so he was mentally prepared and said, "Grandfather, actually, someone secretly helped little Nan." Oh. Xiang Zhanxiong was shocked. "So, that person secretly taught you cultivation techniques and taught you how to cultivate? Who is that person?" Xiang Nan shook his head. "It's an old senior, but little Nan doesn't know his name. He didn't take little Nan as his disciple. However, the old man said that he valued my talent. He wanted to nurture me first. If I had any future prospects, he would consider accepting me." Xiang Zhanxiong's face was filled with joy. He stroked his beard and smiled, "The strength and combat skills you've displayed lately, even Grandpa is ashamed of being inferior to you." I guessed that there must be an expert behind you. Even so, you must cultivate diligently. Don't waste their goodwill. Little Nan understands, Xiang Nan said respectfully. Xiang Zhanxiong nodded and smiled. Don't bother about the family matters. Just focus on your cultivation. You must be selected in Marshall City and hand in a satisfactory answer to that senior. Yes. Xiang Nan nodded in agreement. Early the next morning, Xiang Nan brought all the ingredients and pill furnaces with him and rushed to the back mountain to refine the second-grade stone skin pill. However, before that, he still sent a message to City Lord Hongzhen, indicating the Xiang clan's request for help. Signaling was an expensive means of communication. It was a type of token filled with essence that could be sent directly to the City Lord's mansion. Back mountain. Xiang Nan set up a pill furnace and placed all the spiritual herbs needed to refine the stone skin pill in front of it. Apothecary was an extremely noble profession in this world. Their martial arts might not be very strong, but their status was exceptionally high. Just like how an ordinary mortal would have money and status, one day you would ask for a doctor, and a martial artist would definitely ask for an alchemist. Pill concoction was a profound and unfathomable knowledge. This thing only depended on talent, not hard work. If you don't have talent, even if you work hard all your life, you definitely won't be able to become a beginner alchemist. In his previous life, Xiang Nan was a disciple candidate that countless alchemists wanted to frantically snatch. He had indeed learned some very high-end alchemy techniques, but he was more focused on martial arts. I've lost my 5 heavenly spiritual meridians. I wonder if I still have the talent to concoct pills in this life. Xiang Nan took 3 deep breaths in front of the furnace. To tell the truth, he really didn't know if he could refine pills in this life. The second-grade pill, the stone skin pill, was complex as well as simple. It depended on who refined it. The ingredients are just superficial knowledge. Xiang Nan muttered to himself as he threw all kinds of spiritual herbs into the pill furnace. Then, he took a deep breath and the weather in his body flowed to his right hand, slapping the pill furnace's outer wall with his palm. The palm landed on the outer wall of the pill furnace, and the weather contained within it immediately poured into the pill furnace. Almost at the same time, a fire rose beneath the pill furnace. The temperature of the furnace quickly penetrated through the outer wall and entered the interior. The temperature was swept up by the previous weather and began to swim inside the pill furnace, preheating the spiritual herbs first. There were far too many things to consider for an alchemist in pill concoction. From the intensity of the fire, the speed of the fire, the timing of the furnace opening, to the alchemist's perception of the changes in the medicinal properties, every detail of the reaction of the spiritual herbs to the high temperature had to be taken into account. If he wanted to write out this knowledge, he was afraid that even a dozen or so thick books wouldn't be able to hold it. At this moment, Xiang Nan's expression became uglier and uglier. He possessed extremely strong control over the weather, and the accuracy of his strength could be said to be rare in the world. But the trouble is... Damn it! Xiang Nan frowned and said, I can't feel the changes in the medicinal properties anymore. Wood talent was a great help in pill refinement. It allowed Xiang Nan to feel the changes in the temperature of every spiritual herb at any time. However, in this life, he had already lost the innate attributes of the 5 elements. Although the fire could be controlled to perfection, he was unable to sense the medicinal properties inside the spirit herbs, nor could he sense the changes in the temperature of the spirit herbs. Without this kind of perception, it would be foolish to refine pills. At this moment, Xiang Nan was able to control the fire, but he didn't know what was going on with those spirit herbs. No, continue to refine blindly. All the spiritual herbs will be destroyed. Sweat appeared on Xiang Nan's forehead. It wasn't a pity that the spiritual herbs had been destroyed. Unfortunately, he had lost his talent in pill refining. Just as he was about to give up helplessly, he suddenly had an idea. He suddenly converted the weather that swept the temperature of the furnace into thunder and lightning. The divine grade lightning meridian innate talent allowed Xiang Nan to control the lightning power with absolute precision. Thunder and lightning swept through the high temperature and quickly pierced through the spiritual herbs. In the next moment, a miracle occurred. Those thunder and lightning energy actually pierced through the spirit herbs, dialyzing the most basic components of the spirit herbs. Xiang Nan was shocked and said, "This. The power of thunder and lightning pierced through the spirit herbs, allowing Xiang Nan to understand the most detailed changes in the spirit herbs in his chest. The level of detail was even accurate to the molecular level. Not only did he not lose his talent in alchemy, he was even more powerful. His perception of the changes in spiritual herbs was simply unprecedented. Xiang Nan felt everything inside the pill furnace in disbelief. It was clear, thorough, accurate, and perfect. After the herbs were preheated, Xiang Nan immediately increased the power of lightning and tempered the furnace fire to a higher temperature. An hour later, Xiang Nan slammed his palm heavily on the outer wall of the furnace, and the top of the furnace instantly opened. Swoosh 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 swoosh. 3 yellow pills were rolling in his palm, and Xiang Nan sucked in a breath of cold air. The second-grade stone skin pill had succeeded, but it didn't waste the slightest bit of medicinal power. It had been refined into 3 pills. Each grade of medicinal pill was divided into 4 grades, namely, low grade, intermediate grade, high grade, and top grade. As for the second-grade stone skin pills that Xiang Nan refined, they were all top-grade second-grade pills, top-grade second-grade pills. Chapter 28 Business Disruption. I really didn't expect that. Xiang Nan was filled with emotions as he held on to 3 top-grade pills. It turned out that his lightning meridian talent was so heaven-defying. No wonder lightning meridian martial artists were so rare from ancient times until now. And this heaven-defying talent could also bring him such tremendous help in the path of pill refining. In other words, according to his previous thoughts, if he used himself as a pill to refine his body, wouldn't the success rate be even higher? Since that's the case. He put the 3 stone skin pills into his storage ring and nodded. The only ingredients I need for body refinement are the thunderbolt vines. It seemed that his bold idea could be realized, and Xiang Nan immediately felt very happy. However, where would he find something like the thunderclap vine? This stunned Xiang Nan. He was not familiar with the abundant spiritual herbs within the Bluestone City. Right. He patted his forehead and said, "I can ask the city lord. He is in charge of Bluestone City." Thinking of this, Xiang Nan immediately set off towards Bluestone City. To enter the city lord's mansion, one had to cross a busy trade street called Welcome Street. This was because merchants and martial artists traveling from south to north would sell their goods here, making this street a must for all families. Back then, the Xiang clan had 4 shops on this street, including 2 weapons shops, an armor shop, and a spirit herb shop. Right. Xiang Nan walked down the street and thought to himself, "Grandpa and the others want to buy back a few shops. It seems that they are here. I wonder if they have succeeded. Since I'm here, I'll go take a look." After advancing for a while, Xiang Nan arrived at a spirit herb shop. This place used to belong to the Xiang clan, but Xiang Nan looked inside from the door and saw a round table in the shop. Sitting around the round table was the shopkeeper of the spirit herb shop. On the other two sides were his father and two uncles. Xiang Nan walked in and sat down beside his father. However, he saw that his father's expression was extremely ugly. It seemed that the conversation was not going very smoothly. "Aren't you asking a sky-high price?" Xiang Xiaohua's face turned ashen as he angrily said to the shopkeeper, "Back then, we only sold this shop to you for 70,000 gold coins, but now you're asking for 500,000 gold coins." The shopkeeper's expression did not change. He glanced at Xiang Xiaohua indifferently. Today is different from the past. The new city district is about to open. This welcome street is also inch by inch. As the water rises, the boat will naturally be much more expensive than before. Furthermore, if it weren't for the city lord helping your Xiang clan, I wouldn't even have sold it to you. Xiaohua, what do you think we should do? One of Xiang Nan's uncles turned to look at Xiang Xiaohua. Xiang Xiaohua struggled in his heart for a long time before he let out a sigh and said, 500,000 yuan is 500,000 yuan. I want this shop. Since that's the case, the shopkeeper revealed a smile. Just as he spoke, he was interrupted by a very ear-piercing voice. Wait! Two people suddenly appeared in front of the shop. They were Wang Rongsheng of the Wang clan and a woman around the age of 18 or 19. When Xiang Nan saw the Wang clan appear, he immediately frowned. He knew that the Wang clan had indeed come looking for trouble again. Wang Rongsheng strode into the shop and sat down directly opposite the shopkeeper. He smiled and said, "Our Wang clan has offered 550,000 yuan to buy this shop." When the shopkeeper heard this, he immediately waved his hand at Xiang Xiaohua and said, "Sorry, someone is bidding higher than you." Xiang Xiaohua glared at Wang Rongsheng and said, "Our Xiang clan asked the city lord for help, so the shopkeeper was willing to sell this shop. Otherwise, the shopkeeper wouldn't sell it at all." Wang Rongsheng didn't care at all. He said, "Of course, the highest bidder will get the goods. Our Wang clan is bidding higher than yours. This shop will naturally belong to our Wang clan." The shopkeeper smiled and nodded, "Brother Wang is right." When Xiang Xiaohua heard this, he could only ruthlessly say, "Then our Xiang clan will pay 570,000 yuan. Too stingy." Wang Rongsheng mockingly said, "Our Wang clan will pay 600,000 yuan. You, Xiang Xiaohua pointed at Wang Rongsheng, speechless. "What happened to me?" Wang Rongsheng crossed his legs and sneered, "I can tell you that none of the 4 shops of your Xiang clan will be taken back." At this moment, a group of people arrived at the entrance, but they were the 3 elders of the Xiang clan. Xiang Xiaohua hurriedly stood up and said, "Big uncle, 3rd uncle, 4th uncle, how are things over there?" The faces of the 3 elders were extremely ugly. It was obvious that they were angry. The great elder gritted his teeth and said, "The other 3 shops were messed up by the Wang clan's Li clan and the Mo clan. We were unable to take them down." Hearing this, Xiang Xiaohua sat down and his heart went cold. Wang Li Mo and the other 3 families worked together to deal with the Xiang family. Even if Xiang Xiaohua was willing to spend more money to buy it, how could he withstand the financial resources of the 3 families? Xiang Nan had been sitting on the side and listening. When things got to this point, Xiang Nan's heart was filled with anger. "Father." Xiang Nan stood up and whispered, "It's better for us to go back and discuss the matter of buying a shop before making a decision." Xiang Nan was very clear in his heart that this matter had already reached a dead end. He had to rely on the help of outsiders to coordinate it. Perhaps he could talk to the city lord. Xiang Xiaohua was helpless and could only sigh as he walked out of the shop. You are Xiang Nan. At this time, the Wang family in the shop followed. The woman who had always been standing beside Wang Rongxing asked. Xiang Nan turned around to look at her and saw that she was 18 or 19 years old and pretty. What was even more rare was that she had reached the 8th level of the Xiantian realm. I've heard of you. The woman smiled faintly and extended her right hand to Xiang Nan. I heard that you shouldered the heavy burden of the Xiang clan by yourself. I admire your character very much, she said. My name is Wang Jingyun. We will meet in the city selection in a month. I hope you can perform better then. Xiang Nan hesitated for a moment, but he still held Wang Jingyun's hand together. This Wang Jingyun was not as arrogant and domineering as Wang Jinghai, so it seemed to be easy to accept. At this moment, a muffled bang suddenly came from the side, followed by a miserable scream. A figure suddenly flew backwards from outside and landed at Xiang Nan's feet. Xiang Nan stared intently at the man lying under his feet who was seriously injured and vomiting blood. He was actually the grandson of the first elder, Xiang Zhonghua. Zhonghua. The great elder was shocked and hurriedly wanted to help Xiang Zhonghua. Xiang Nan pulled Xiang Zhonghua up and frowned. Cousin, how are you? Before Xiang Nan could finish his words, a ray of early weather suddenly shot towards him from the crack in the crowd. The target of the early weather was Xiang Zhonghua. Xiang Nan was instantly enraged. Who rewarded Xiang Zhonghua? That person was unexpectedly unforgiving, and he was actually still chasing after them. At this critical moment, Xiang Nan raised his hand and slapped the weather away. Suddenly, a cold breath sounded from the crowd. That was the first day. He was actually sent flying by Xiang Nan's slap. Xiang Nan looked in the direction of the weather and saw Wang Jinghai. Wang Jinghai was still smiling sinisterly, but his face was already pale. He pointed at Xiang Nan and said, When did you reach the 3rd level of the Xiantian realm? Wang Jinghai. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and raised his hand. This weather was not a joke. When Xiang Nan was at Xiantian 1st layer, he could easily defeat Wang Jinghai. Now, Xiang Nan was already a Xiantian 3rd layer martial artist. Wang Jinghai could definitely break a few of his ribs in this weather. Chapter 29 Unreasonable and Unreasonable. Wang Jinghai's expression changed drastically. Sister, quickly save me. Almost at the same time, Wang Jingyun suddenly made a move. She raised her hand and waved it. A strong Xiantian gathered on her palm, sending the Xiantian that Xiang Nan had attacked flying away. Xiang Nan did not hesitate at all. When Wang Jingyun sent her flying, he had already rushed out. Xiang Nan's figure circled around Wang Jingyun and punched Wang Jinghai in the chest. Xiang Nan, stop! Wang Jingyun frowned and grabbed Xiang Nan's wrist. Moreover, she used the Xiantian 8th layer of Xiantian Qi in her hand. The strength of her hand was astonishing. She was sure that Xiang Nan could not break free from her wrist, so she opened her mouth to speak. Clinker, Xiang Nan secretly converted his previous weather into lightning power, and its power instantly doubled to a total of 4,600 jin. Wang Jingyun's expression changed. She shook her wrist and whispered, "Capture the snake hand." At that moment, the Xiantian that Wang Jingyun had attached to her hand suddenly turned into a ferocious python, tightly gripping Xiang Nan's wrist. Xiang Nan's explosive power doubled, but he was unable to break free. One had to know that the strength of a Xiantian realm martial artist could no longer be measured solely by strength. Xiantian could indeed strengthen a martial artist's own strength, but not only did it exist to increase one's strength, it also had an even more important role to play, and that was to activate a martial skill. Her 8th level Xiantian realm allowed her to use even more Xiantian Qi at once. As for the so-called snake capturing hand, it was clearly a high-grade spiritual grade martial skill. At this moment, Xiang Nan only had one trump card of the thunderclap martial skill. He couldn't use it casually, so he couldn't compete with Wang Jingyun in terms of martial skills. He could only clench his teeth and expend a lot of energy to triple his strength. This time, Xiang Nan's strength soared to 6,900 jin. Even though Wang Jingyun had forcefully sealed off Xiang Nan's strength with her powerful martial skill, it wasn't enough to lock down nearly 7,000 jin of strength. Xiang Nan shook his wrist and directly pushed away Wang Jingyun's right hand. Then, he slapped Wang Jinghai with his palm. Wang Jinghai had already begun to flee, but Xiang Nan and Wang Jingyun had fought too quickly, allowing Wang Jinghai only 5 or 6 steps away. Xiang Nan slid over and saw that his palm was about to be imprinted on Wang Jinghai's back, and the annoying Wang Jingyun caught up with him again. She grabbed Xiang Nan's arm. This pull of hers pulled Xiang Nan's strength back a lot. Unfortunately, she took action a little later than Xiang Nan, and Xiang Nan's palm was still on Wang Jinghai's back. Pooh! Wang Jinghai spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. Xiang Nan, you! Wang Jingyun's eyes turned red with anger. She pointed at Xiang Nan's nose and angrily said, I thought you were a responsible man, but who would have thought you would be so aggressive? I've put aside my family feud and admired you. I really saw the wrong person. Xiang Nan's eyes gradually narrowed as he said in a deep voice, it was clearly Wang Jinghai who injured my cousin first, but I can only be considered as avenging my cousin. Wang Jingyun, could it be that only your Wang clan can injure others? Our Xiang clan's counterattack has become aggressive? Wang Jingyun blushed angrily and shouted, you really have sharp teeth and sharp tongue. A grown man's mouth is so sharp, it's too narrow-bellied. Xiang Nan frowned deeply. Don't tell me I can't explain your slander of me for being aggressive. However, Xiang Nan did not say anything further. Since the Tao was different, then he did not conspire. This time, Xiang Nan's only good impression of Wang Jingyun was also destroyed. Little Nan, behind him, Xiang Zhonghua grabbed Xiang Nan's shoulder. He gave Xiang Nan a grateful look and sincerely said, thank you. Xiang Nan nodded. Although he had a conflict with Xiang Zhonghua in the family, he could not allow outsiders to bully the Xiang family. At this moment, another group of people walked in from outside the crowd. They were all men and women of 18 or 19 years of age. Upon seeing these people, Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. Xiang Nan had heard of 2 of the leaders among them. One was Li Qingchuan from the Li clan, and the other was Mo Hai from the Mo clan. Li Qingchuan was skinny and had a hook nose. He looked unfriendly and was a Xiantian 8th layer expert. Mo Hai was even more powerful. He was tall and sturdy, 2 meters tall. Behind him was a broadsword. He was known as the #1 expert of his age in the 6 towns. With the strength of the late Xiantian 9th layer, half of his foot had already stepped into the origin realm. It could even be said that Mo Hai was already able to walk horizontally in Bluestone City, and no one dared to provoke him. These people were all young martial artists who were 2 to 3 years older than Xiang Nan, and they were also the top experts who were about to participate in the selection of Martial Dao City. Mo Hai's nose was wide and his mouth looked extremely calm. He smiled at Wang Jingyun and said, Xiaoyun, is there someone looking for trouble with you? This person's tone was full of anger, which meant that his previous weather was very rich. Wang Jingyan's pair of heroes were crimson and her face was shy. It seemed that her personal relationship with Mo Hai was extraordinary. "Sister-in-law, just say that Brother Hai will help you out." Li Qingchuan laughed. Wang Jingyan's face turned even redder as she spat, "Don't talk nonsense." Mo Hai was very infatuated with Wang Jingyan's expression. He smiled gently and said, "It's fine. With me here, no one dares to look for your misfortune." "Is it him?" Li Qingchuan dug his ears and casually pointed at Xiang Nan's nose. Wang Jingyan looked at Xiang Nan with a complicated expression and hesitated, "Actually, both of us." "Then he's right." Li Qingchuan didn't even wait for Wang Jingyan to finish her sentence. He directly pulled out a long sword and slashed at Xiang Nan. This Li Qingchuan possessed the strength of the 8th level of the Xiantian realm. His sword strike actually slashed out a terrifying sword chi that was more than 5 meters long. When Xiang Nan saw the sword chi, his heart sank. He immediately condensed 3 times the explosive force and punched out. At the same time, his body quickly jumped to the left. Xiang Nan's Xiantian condensed into the shape of a fist, carrying 6,000 kilograms of power as it collided with Li Qingchuan's sword chi. However, Xiang Nan's previous weather was cut open by Li Qingchuan's sword chi on the spot. As a result, the sword chi weakened more than half of its power, but it still flew out and fiercely sliced into the ground 5 to 6 meters away. The ground was instantly cut open by a deep crack. Xiang Nan's expression was solemn. He did not have any weapons in his hands, so it was very difficult to fight Li Qingchuan. Although Xiang Nan's strength erupted, it was like throwing a tree weighing several hundred jin at a sharp sword that weighed only 10 jin. Although the sharp sword was light, it could easily cut through trees. However, the expressions of Mo Hai and Li Qingchuan also changed slightly. Mo Hai said in a deep voice, "A Xiantian 3rd layer kid can actually dodge Qingchuan's sword strike." Li Qingchuan chuckled at Xiang Nan, "Alright, kid, I heard that you are at the top of your class. From the looks of it, are you showing your pride? Today, as a senior, I will teach you a good lesson so that you do not know the heavens and earth." Chapter 30 Black Saber. The conflict between the two sides was originally caused by Wang Jinghai bullying Xiang Zhonghua. Wang Jingyan was also very clear about this sword incident. However, Wang Jingyan only watched the battle with a complicated expression and did not say anything to stop Li Qingchuan, an older man, from attacking Xiang Nan, a younger teenager. This made Xiang Nan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He thought to himself, "I thought that Wang Jingyan would be different from others. In the end, she was just a nest of snakes and rats." Li Qingchuan laughed loudly, "Brat, let's see how arrogant you are this time." With that, Li Qingchuan wielded his sword and slashed towards Xiang Nan. This sword chi was sharp and harsh, accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of the wind. It's even more powerful than the sword chi just now. Xiang Nan's pupils constricted, injecting the first weather into his feet. The first weather erupted, pushing his body to the side quickly. The sword thrilled Xiang Nan's right arm and cut off a small piece of Xiang Nan's sleeve. Li Qingchuan followed closely behind and jumped up. The long sword in his hand fell from top to bottom, and he shouted, "Flying Cloud Slash." This Flying Cloud Slash was extremely powerful. Li Qingchuan instantly struck out with 2 swords. The 2 strands of sword chi suddenly fused in midair, turning into an even more violent and gigantic sword chi. 2 5-meter-tall sword chi merged together to form an 8-meter-tall sword chi. Its power was simply unparalleled. Xiang Nan had just dodged a sword strike when this even greater sword chi shot towards him. He can't dodge. Mo Hai hugged his shoulders and said confidently. Wang Jingyun's expression suddenly changed. She said in shock, Qing Chuan can't kill. He, Xiang Nan, is going to participate in the city selection. However, it was already too late for her to say those words. Everyone thought that Xiang Nan was going to be hit by the sword chi, and even if he didn't die, he would still have to cut off an arm. As Xiang Nan was in a hurry, he instantly converted the Xiantian chi in his body into thunder and lightning. Furthermore, the thunder and lightning were white. He used the power of the white flame lightning to condense the power of the white flame lightning under his feet and kicked it on the bluestone road. He saw that the bluestone pavement was stepped on with a muffled boom, and it sunk into a crater that was nearly a meter in diameter. As for Xiang Nan, due to the terrifying backlash, he directly turned into an afterimage and disappeared on the spot with a whoosh. He's dodging. The faces of everyone present changed drastically. Mo Hai and Li Qingchuan exchanged a glance, and none of them dared to believe what they saw. There he is. Mo Hai's eyes were sharp, and his gaze suddenly looked up high. Everyone hurriedly chased after him, only to see Xiang Nan standing on the roof of a two-story restaurant. So fast. Wang Jingyun covered her mouth in disbelief. Just now, Xiang Nan's speed was actually unable to catch even a Xiantian 8th layer expert like her. On the roof, Xiang Nan's expression wasn't good, because he had no choice but to use the power of the white flame lightning flame. The power of the lightning flame couldn't be regenerated. He had absorbed a bolt of lightning, but he had only absorbed 20 to 30% of it. It could be said that he had used a little less. At this moment, there was only 80% of the precious lightning power left in Xiang Nan's body. Sigh, Xiang Nan sighed in his heart. If he could absorb the lightning source of the lightning, then the power of the lightning would be endless. This kid is very evil. Li Qingchuan gritted his teeth, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Previously, Li Qingchuan only wanted to teach Xiang Nan a lesson, but now that he saw Xiang Nan's strength, he knew that Xiang Nan was not allowed to stay. I told you to run. Li Qingchuan pulled out his sword and chopped down, flying cloud slash. The veins on Xiang Nan's forehead bulged. Could it be that he was still wasting the power of lightning to dodge? If he didn't use the power of lightning, he would have been hacked to death. Young Master Xiang, take the knife. At this critical moment, just as Li Qingchuan was about to draw his sword, a resplendent voice like a river of stars rang out on the spot. It was the mysterious woman from the auction house. The woman had already stood behind the crowd and watched the battle. At this moment, it was also her who tossed the strange black blade of the auction house towards Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan originally did not intend to interact with this mysterious woman too much, but at this moment, he could not choose. He could only take the mysterious black saber and merge the power of thunder and lightning into the saber without any hesitation, hacking down on Li Qingchuan's sword chi. With the weapon, Xiang Nan was unwilling to waste the power of lightning. He only used the power of ordinary lightning to counterattack. At the same time, he wanted to see how powerful this black blade was. What happened next was something that Xiang Nan hadn't expected. When the black saber came into contact with the power of thunder and lightning, its grade had actually risen by leaps and bounds. It was originally a low-grade mortal-grade trash weapon, but with the infusion of thunder and lightning, its grade had soared to the middle-grade mortal grade. No, it's still improving. High-grade mortal realm. Lower spirit stage. Intermediate spirit stage. High-grade spirit stage. Good, so fast. Xiang Nan was greatly shocked. This black saber had actually risen to a high-grade spirit grade within a single thought. As for the saber chi that he had sliced down, the surface of the saber chi was covered with tiny electric currents that were hard to see with the naked eye. In midair, Xiang Nan's saber chi collided with Li Qingchuan's sword chi. With a loud explosion, waves of energy spread out in all directions, causing everyone watching the battle below to be blown into beard dancing wildly. As for the saber chi and sword chi, they actually cancelled each other out. This Li Qingchuan was dumbfounded. The flying cloud he used was a martial skill. That Xiang Nan only used his pure yuan chi to slash out, yet he was actually able to cancel out his own sword chi. Everyone was shocked beyond words, but their gazes fell on Xiang Nan's black saber. Obviously, everyone thought that it was the black saber that played an inconceivable role, not Xiang Nan's own strength. Even the majority of the people present revealed unreserved greed towards the black saber. Xiang Nan was the only one who didn't immediately appreciate the black saber. Instead, he looked at the mysterious woman in shock. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. This saber could actually be upgraded with the power of thunder and lightning. In other words, this saber could test out the lightning meridian talent. At that moment, Xiang Nan felt his heart sink. Not good, exposed. Sure enough, the mysterious woman's face was also filled with shock, but her beautiful eyes bloomed with excitement that Xiang Nan could not understand. Li Qingchuan gritted his teeth and said, "Good boy, have you obtained a precious weapon? My flying cloud can't deal with you anymore. Alright, then let me use a stronger martial skill to experience the power of your weapon." After saying that, Li Qingchuan raised his sword, and then his arms suddenly trembled. He saw the Xiantian Qi rolling towards his wrist in waves on his right arm. Buzz buzz. The sword in Li Qingchuan's hand started to roar under the pulsation of the wave-shaped Yuan Qi, and the brightness of the sword became more and more intense. Wind Meridian Talent. Xiang Nan frowned. It turned out that Li Qingchuan possessed the talent of a mortal-grade Wind Meridian. No wonder his sword Qi was so fierce. However, it also reflected how domineering Xiang Nan's divine-grade lightning veins were. It was precisely because of this heaven-defying innate level of divine grade that Xiang Nan was able to cross 5 small realms and use pure Yuan Qi attacks to counteract Li Qingchuan's flying cloud/martial technique. Stop! At this moment, a loud explosive shout sounded. Chapter 31 Make a Generous Move. From the sky, a huge figure suddenly descended. The figure landed on the ground with a loud explosion, causing the ground to jump gently. When everyone saw this person, they all cupped their fists and said, "Greetings, City Lord." The one who came was City Lord Hongzhen. Hongzhen's gaze swept across the crowd, and his gaze lingered on Mo Hai, Li Qingchuan, and Xiang Nan for the longest time. However, Hongzhen Langxing shouted, "You are all contestants who want to participate in the selection of Martial Arts City. Why are you fighting here?" This Wang Jingyan's expression was ugly. She knew that Wang Jinghai had provoked this matter, so she feared that the city lord would hold her accountable if she told Wang Jinghai about it. Mo Hai, on the other hand, hugged his shoulders. He glanced at Xiang Nan and said, "You have to seek the protection of the city lord in everything." "Xiang Nan, is that all you have?" "Yes." Li Qingchuan was furious and said angrily, "Relying on the fact that you are a famous person in front of the city lord, is this the capital of your arrogance?" I've let you guys finish your sentence." Xiang Nan held the black saber in his hand and jumped off the roof of the restaurant, landing steadily on the ground. Hong Zhen knew that today was the day the Xiang clan purchased the shop. He was entrusted by Xiang Nan to come here to take a look at the situation. However, now that he saw that the people from the three great clans were all here, the city lord had an idea. He looked at the shopkeeper and asked, "Shopkeeper Zhao, didn't you agree to transfer the shop to the Xiang clan?" Shopkeeper Zhao smiled respectfully, "That's right, but there are people who bid even higher. There's no reason why we shouldn't choose a buyer with a higher price, right?" At this moment, Wang Rongsheng stood up and said, "Lord City Lord, although you are in charge of Blue Stone City, you have no reason to force us traders to do business, right?" City Lord Hong Zhen was also in trouble. He really wanted to help Xiang Nan, but he could only persuade shopkeeper Zhao. He could not order anyone to sell the shop to him. Thus, the three great clans all sneered at the Xiang clan, as if saying that we have many methods to kill your Xiang clan. As for the mysterious woman in the crowd, she walked out leisurely. Her beautiful eyes raised her long eyelashes and her gaze landed on Xiang Nan. "Oh. Is young Master Xiang going to buy this shop?" Everyone looked at the mysterious woman, but seeing that she was wearing a black veil, they could not see her appearance clearly. However, based on her pair of soul-stirring eyes, they could guess that her appearance must have fallen from grace. Xiang Nan didn't really want to provoke this woman, so he casually let out an "oh," as if he was dealing with it. "Who knew?" the woman laughed, "Shopkeeper Zhao." The shopkeeper surnamed Zhao's expression suddenly changed. He respectfully came to the woman's side, and there was a detail that attracted everyone's attention. Shopkeeper Zhao deliberately lagged behind the woman by half a step. Moreover, his body was slightly bent, completely like a servant standing beside his master. The woman smiled and said, "Young Master Xiang, how many shops do you want?" Shopkeeper Zhao said, "As far as I know, the Xiang clan intends to take back a total of 4 rooms." The woman nodded, "Then these 4 shops are all free to the Xiang clan. I remember that we should have 8 other shops on this street, right? Give young Master Xiang 2 more." Shopkeeper Zhao bowed deeply, "I'll listen to your orders." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. A total of 6 shops, free gifts to the Xiang clan. Who was this woman? The Xiang clan side is where you look at me and I look at you. They won't be able to react in a short period of time. Xiang Nan frowned even deeper. He wanted to reject the woman's kindness, but when he saw his father's eager gaze, he hesitated in his heart. He thought of his father, his mother, and his grandfather, who had been guarding the Xiang clan, and sighed in his heart. "Forget it, since I was reborn in the Xiang clan and took over Xiang Nan's body, I can't think of everything for myself." With that in mind, Xiang Nan could only clasp his fists at the mysterious woman and say, "Thank you." The woman smiled elegantly, "It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. It's also my honor to be able to help young Master Xiang." "Great, this is really great." The 3 elders of the Xiang clan didn't react until this time, and they were all so excited that they couldn't help but feel uncontrollably excited. The people from the other 3 great clans suffered a huge loss here in Xiang Nan, losing face once again. They were so angry that they almost knew nothing about it. Wang Rongsheng hit a nail on the back of Xiang Nan several times. He was so angry that he angrily said to the woman, "We have already agreed with Manager Zhao. You said that we would give it to the Xiang family." Hearing this, even Xiang Nan couldn't help but roll his eyes. He thought to himself, "Wang Rongsheng, are you really old and foolish?" As a result, the mysterious woman who had always been smiling suddenly turned cold. Her beautiful eyes narrowed as she looked at Wang Ronghua and said, "I asked you a question. Our own shop, I can do whatever I want. It's your turn to talk more." As she spoke, a wisp of frost flashed across the woman's eyes. This gaze made Wang Rongsheng suddenly feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave in the summer. A chill rose from the soles of his feet and rushed straight to the top of his head. Xiang Nan was increasingly unable to see through the mysterious woman. When she smiled, it was like spring breeze, but when it was cold, it was like a sharp blade that scratched bones. The three great clans knew that if they stayed, they would be even more humiliated, so they hurriedly left. City Lord Hongzhen took a deep look at the mysterious woman and then laughed loudly. Since the deal has been reached, let's get close. How about setting a table at the Drunken Immortal building to celebrate? Yes, yes. I'll be the East. Little Nan, you can take care of the City Lord and this girl. Xiang Shaohua hurriedly smiled. The mysterious woman shook her head. Just now, Leng Ruohuang's face became friendly again. She pointed to the Drunken Immortal building beside her and said, I want to talk to young Master Xiang alone. Young Master Xiang, I'll go up first. After saying that, she turned around and went upstairs. Leave everyone to look at me, I look at you. I just feel that this woman's behavior is strange, difficult to understand. Xiang Shaohua hurriedly asked, Little Nan, what is the background of this girl? How can she be willing to give the 6 shops to my Xiang family for nothing? Xiang Nan shook his head and said, Father, go sign the deed contract with the 3 elders. I'll go see her. Good, good. You must thank her. Xiang Shaohua expected that a woman's status was noble, so she didn't ask too much. After the Xiang family left, Xiang Nan asked the city lord, Lord Hongzhen, do you know the identity of this woman? Hongzhen stroked his beard and shook his head, I only know that she is a big shot behind the scenes of the treasure-gathering pavilion. I don't know her exact identity, and this is the second time I've seen her. Xiang Nan, that woman's background is unknown. You must treat her with caution. Understood. After sending the city lord off, Xiang Nan took a deep breath and stepped into the Drunken Immortal building. Since that woman might know his Thunder Meridian talent, he should go meet her and see what her purpose was. On the 2nd floor of the Drunken Immortal building, near the window, the mysterious woman was already sitting at the table. The table was filled with rich dishes. She gracefully stood up and waved at Xiang Nan, Young Master Xiang, please sit down. Xiang Nan pulled out his chair and handed the black knife over, your knife. The woman looked at Xiang Nan with a faint smile and did not receive the knife. Chapter 32 Black Sharp Demonic Forest. Here's your saber. Seeing that she was indifferent, Xiang Nan added. The woman shook her head and said, here's the saber for you. Xiang Nan said, you still want to hand over such a precious weapon? However, you won't receive any rewards. What? The woman interrupted Xiang Nan and raised her eyebrows. You've taken all 6 shops. You already owe me a favor. Do you still need this knife? Xiang Nan really couldn't see through her, so he could only put the black saber aside and sat down to pick up his glass. Since that's the case, I won't be a mother-in-law. Thank you for your help. The woman picked up the wine glass, but did not put it into her mouth. Instead, she slightly moved her red lips behind the black gauze. The wine in the glass turned into a thin water rope, which unexpectedly circled the gap in the black gauze and directly sucked it into her mouth. I admire you. Xiang Nan nodded and drank all the wine in his cup. The woman held her cheek with one hand and looked at Xiang Nan with a smile that was not a smile. Xiang Nan could not stand the look in her eyes and said somewhat embarrassedly, why are you helping me like this? The woman gently waved her hand and said, there's no need to talk about a few shops. It's just a matter of a few small coins. This saber is a gift to a hero from a treasured saber, not to mention that it can't play any role in my hands." Xiang Nan's spirits instantly rose. The second half of the woman's words were true. The woman picked up a piece of vegetable and put it into Xiang Nan's bowl. Her voice was hoarse and sexy. "Honestly, I have something to ask. I've been searching all over the world these past few years, and I just want to find someone who possesses the talent of lightning veins." "Ha!" Xiang Nan stood up, cupped his fists and cupped his hands. "Thank you for your help, but you've found the wrong person. Goodbye." With that, Xiang Nan turned around and left without even taking the black saber. He knew very well that an ordinary man was innocent of his sins. If news of his lightning meridian talent were to spread, many people would want to kill him. After returning to the Xiang Manor, Xiang Nan thought for a while and sent a message to the city lord asking about the thunderbolt vine. This was because it was impossible to raise one's cultivation to the 7th or 8th level of the Xiantian realm in just a month. It was impossible to rely solely on medicinal pills, and one could only rely on the heaven-defying 9 transformations of thunder. Today, he had fought with Li Qingchuan and already knew that Li Qingchuan's strength was unfathomable, and that Mo Hai could only be stronger than Li Qingchuan. He urgently needed to raise his cultivation level, otherwise, he would definitely suffer a great loss in the city selection. It didn't take long for the city lord's message to return to Xiang Nan, and he told him that the thunderbolt vine could only appear in the depths of the black sharp demon forest, and repeatedly advised Xiang Nan not to blindly enter. Black sharp demonic forest. Xiang Nan muttered to himself as he went to the clan book collection pavilion to find information about the black sharp demon forest. The black sharp demon forest was located in the northwest of the black sharp mountain range. It was a dangerous area filled with demonic beasts. Many merchants and martial artists who had come to Blue Stone City from the north and south of the world were also aiming for the black sharp demon forest. The black sharp demon forest was rich in demonic energy. It was rich in grade 1 to 2 spirit herbs, but at the same time, there would also be powerful demonic beasts roaming around. Especially at the core of the black sharp demonic forest, there were even more terrifying heavenly Yuan realm demonic beasts. With the strength of a city lord, even a person like him wouldn't be able to easily penetrate into it. Heaven origin realm. Xiang Nan rubbed his temples as he struggled in his heart. As a Xiantian realm martial artist, not to mention meeting a heaven origin realm demonic beast, even meeting a returning origin realm demonic beast would be a dead end. However, he urgently needed a second-grade thunderbolt vine, so he didn't need to go into a tiger's den to gain anything. I may not be that unlucky. I will really encounter a heavenly Yuan realm demonic beast. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and the ruthlessness in his heart rose again. At most, just do some disguise. Xiang Nan immediately went to Bluestone City to buy a variety of common herbs and even some fur from wild beasts. After buying what he wanted, it was already late at night. He took advantage of the night to rush to the Black Sharp Mountain Range. It was dawn in the depths of the Black Sharp Mountain Range. At the edge of the Black Sharp Demon Forest, Xiang Nan took out all the materials he had purchased and said, "Most demonic beasts come out in the daytime and hide in the night. I will be more confident if I take advantage of the dawn to enter." He simply mixed the herbs he had bought with the fur of the wild beast, crushed them into powder with yuan qi, poured water into them, mixed them into mud, and stripped off his clothes and smeared the mud all over his body. This mud could hide the scent of humans to the maximum extent possible. At the same time, the reason why herbs were chosen instead of spirit herbs was because spirit herbs were too spiritual and easily attracted the attention of demonic beasts. After making all the necessary preparations, Xiang Nan nodded his head in satisfaction. He bent his body slightly and shot into the demon forest with a whoosh. At this moment, his entire body was smeared with mud, leaving only the parts of his eyes and nostrils behind. In addition to his swift and agile figure, he jumped back and forth between the trees like a vigorous night leopard. But gradually, as he went deeper and deeper into the demonic forest, he felt an increasingly dense demonic aura. Demonic chi was the unique spiritual energy fluctuation on the body of a demonic beast. It was equivalent to the primordial weather and yuan chi of a human martial artist. Normally speaking, demonic energy was invisible to the naked eye, and could only be seen when one's body entered a place filled with demonic energy. However, in the process, Xiang Nan discovered another benefit of the lightning meridian innate. He injected the power of lightning into his eyes, and an unusual bolt of lightning flashed through his pupils. At this moment, he actually saw a substantial demonic aura. Wherever he could see, the entire forest was filled with a pale gray mist. The mist slowly rose, causing the surrounding scenery to become somewhat dazed, as if it was a hot day when he saw the airflow surging on the bluestone road. This was the first time Xiang Nan had seen such a scene, and he couldn't help but feel shocked. So the lightning meridian talent can still see this kind of thing. The demonic aura there seems to be a little more dense. Xiang Nan suddenly discovered that the demonic aura in the demonic forest was different in color. Some places were very light in color, while others were slightly denser. Understood, Xiang Nan nodded excitedly. Where the demonic energy is dense, there must be high-level demonic beasts hibernating and circling around. With the ability to spy on demonic energy, Xiang Nan was like a tiger adding wings. He walked around the dense demonic energy area without disturbing any high-level demonic beasts along the way. However, as he approached the Black Sharp Demon Forest's core region, the situation became somewhat complicated. Although he could see a substantial amount of demonic energy, the demonic energy in the core region was dark gray. There was no way around it. Xiang Nan's pace slowed down, his expression slightly hesitant. Is there no other way? Suddenly, Xiang Nan heard a hoarse but gentle voice. You. Xiang Nan suddenly turned around and recognized the owner of the voice. Sure enough, on a tree behind him, the mysterious woman was looking at him gracefully. And in her right hand, she was still pulling the cute little girl. Chapter 33 Little Ewer. Xiang Nan couldn't help but curse in his heart. He was too careless. He didn't even realize that there was someone following behind him. The woman seemed to be able to see through Xiang Nan's thoughts. She chuckled and said, "The difference between our realms is too great. You won't be able to detect my existence." The little girl beside him blinked her big eyes and pouted, "Big sister, I want to eat sweet fruit." The woman dotted on the little girl's head and said, "Ewer, be good. You can't eat any more sweet fruits today. Be obedient." The little girl said angrily, "In the past, I could still eat 3 pills a day, but now I'm only allowed to eat 1. Big sister, am I going to die?" The woman hurriedly covered the little girl's mouth with her fingers and crouched down to whisper, "Ewer will not die. Big sister promises Ewer. When Ewer recovers from her illness, elder sister will definitely let Ewer eat sweet fruits every day, 10 a day, alright?" When she said this, although the woman was smiling, her eyes were red. The little girl finally laughed happily, "Sister, don't lie to Ewer. Eat 10 a day. You can't go back on your word." The woman hugged the little girl tightly and said, "Never go back on her word. Even if elder sister doesn't want this life, she still wants to let Ewer live a good life." "Sister, I can't breathe because of your hug." Little Ewer pushed the woman with difficulty. Below, Xiang Nan heard the conversation between the two sisters. He looked at little Yuer in surprise and felt a little sour in his heart. Was such a young child suffering from an incurable disease? The woman pulled little Yuer's hand and gently descended from the tree. She walked to Xiang Nan's side and said, "To enter the core of the demon forest, a detour alone will not work. I can help you." As she spoke, the woman took out a small light green porcelain bottle from her storage ring. She pulled out the porcelain bottle, and an unpleasant stench came out from it. Then, she took a deep breath and spat it out. Xiang Nan saw that qi clearly. It was definitely yuan qi. Moreover, it was not an ordinary level of yuan qi. The yuan qi that the woman spat out engulfed the smell emitted from the porcelain bottle. It was actually blown hundreds of feet, or even thousands of feet away. "Don't be stunned." The woman grabbed Xiang Nan's right hand and said, "What I blew just now was demon spirit powder. Immediately, a powerful demon beast will be attracted over. Hurry up and leave." She pulled little Yuer with her left hand and Xiang Nan with her right. She jumped lightly on the spot, and her body was actually dragging the strength of the two of them out. Xiang Nan allowed the woman to fly with him, and he was shocked. She could fly. Heaven Origin Realm Expert. Flying was a typical symbol of a Heaven Origin Realm Expert. A martial artist would condense the first weather into yuan qi in the origin realm. In the Heaven Origin Realm, the quality of yuan qi would improve by leaps and bounds, allowing a martial artist to escape the restraints of the ground and fly through the air. Only then did Xiang Nan realize that this mysterious woman was at least not his enemy. Otherwise, with her strength at the Heaven Origin Realm, if she wanted to obtain something from him, then she could directly snatch it away. There was no need for her to do anything to help him. Thinking back to the way she looked at her sister and the tears that made him feel sad, Xiang Nan finally had a deeper understanding of this woman. "Alright, this is it." The woman brought Xiang Nan and little Yuer to the ground slowly and said, "The powerful demonic beasts have been attracted to where we were previously. We will go deeper from here." Xiang Nan wondered, "Since you can fly, why don't you take us straight in?" The woman glanced at Xiang Nan and said, "If we go further, we will reach the core area. Flying will leave behind a strong yuan qi fluctuation, which will attract the attention of the demonic beasts." Oh, Xiang Nan nodded silently. Indeed, he had never interacted with demonic beasts before. In his previous life, Bai Mukin had everything he wanted in the Profound Sky sect. There was no need for him to personally search for demonic beasts. In his previous life, apart from cultivating, he had practiced cultivation. Thus, the three of them swiftly penetrated into the true core of the black sharp demon forest. At this point, a flash of lightning flashed in Xiang Nan's eyes. He discovered that the demonic aura here was extremely dense, and it was not on the same level as the area outside the core. Xiang Nan looked around, his gaze swiftly sweeping past every plant, searching for the second-grade thunderbolt vine he wanted. The woman also became cautious here. She lowered her voice and said, "What exactly are you looking for? You must come to such a place." Xiang Nan whispered, "Second-grade thunderclap vine." The woman chuckled softly, "That fits well with your innate attributes. It looks like you're thinking of a way to improve your cultivation." When it came to innate attributes, Xiang Nan remained silent again. The woman glanced at Xiang Nan and said, "Your guard is very heavy. Could it be that you have been betrayed by someone close to you?" "None of your business." Xiang Nan's voice became a little cold. The woman narrowed her eyes. Just as she was about to say something, her expression changed. "Wait." She immediately stopped and hinted at Xiang Nan to lower his body. Right in front of him, in a dense forest, the shadow of a colossus slowly flashed past. The shadow looked at least 3 meters tall and 5 meters long, but it didn't make a sound as it walked. When Xiang Nan saw it, he couldn't help but gasp, "I saw it in the demonic beast 2G. It's the wind bull." The wind bull was a type of wind-attributed demonic beast. It had a huge body, but its movements did not match its body. It could be said to be extremely agile. First level of origin return. The woman whispered, "Don't attract its attention, or it will attract more demonic beasts." Xiang Nan Xia looked at little Yuer consciously. The woman said casually, "Yuer is wearing a black turtle armor. Demonic beasts below the heaven scryer realm will not discover her." Xiang Nan grinned. Mysterious turtle protective clothes. He knew that the protective cloth was worth at least 50 million gold coins. What a big deal. After the origin realm wind bull left, the woman immediately pulled little Yuer forward and quickly stealthily said, "Speed up. My demon spirit powder only lasts for 2 hours." The three of them rushed towards the dense demon forest's core, but Xiang Nan's search for the thunderbolt vine was getting harder and harder. The deeper they went, the denser the vegetation became. The towering trees pierced through the clouds, and the broad-leaved vegetation below made the visibility very poor. The three of them spent another half an hour and passed through layers of dense jungle. Suddenly, their eyes brightened and a magnificent and peculiar woodland appeared. "Yeah!" Little Yuer clapped her hands in surprise and shouted, "So beautiful." There was a large amount of strange-looking vegetation in that woodland. The key was that these vegetation would shine by itself. The dense jungle made the interior of the jungle as dark as night, and the glowing vegetation was especially dazzling. Chapter 34 Urgent. The woman finally breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, "The thunderbolt vine you're looking for must be in here." "Yes." Xiang Nan nodded excitedly. Light plants absorb thunder and lightning. If there are thunderbolt vines in the demonic forest, it must be inside. The three of them carefully hid in the shining jungle. Everything around them seemed to be so mysterious and dreamy. A large number of plants emitted different colors of magnificent light, and even the insects inside would emit colorful light. Little Yuer was the happiest. She touched this one while touching that one. Her face smiled incomparably brilliantly. When the woman saw this, she dotingly rubbed Xiao Yuer's hair. "Here, thunderbolt vine." A bright shadow flashed across Xiang Nan's eyes and he hurriedly rushed over. On a shining tree, there was a bright vine wrapped around it. Xiang Nan grabbed the vine but was disappointed. He put away the first-grade thunderbolt vine and the woman reminded him, "We still have 2 hours. The smell of the demon spirit powder is almost gone." Xiang Nan looked at little Yuer and really liked this girl in his heart. He said, "Forget it, first grade is first grade. Let's go out." The woman shook her head. "Isn't that for nothing? If you look again, there's still time." The three of them began to grope again. They found all sorts of strange spirit herbs here. Xiang Nan was naturally very impolite and kept them all. "Ah, grapes." Little Yuer pointed in one direction and giggled. When Xiang Nan heard this, he looked over with the woman and said in unison, "Thunder explosion fruit." On a vine hung 2 clusters of grape-like things, but both of them emitted a dazzling glow. "You know it too?" The woman looked at Xiang Nan in surprise. "Good stuff." Xiang Nan walked over excitedly and carefully reached out to pick a string of thunder explosion fruits. This thing will explode when it encounters a violent collision. It's very powerful. Judging from this grade, it should be a second-grade thunder explosion fruit. Throwing one out is enough to blow up a 9th-level Xiantian expert. Throwing a string out is not a problem for a first-level Gue Yuan expert. It's really good stuff. Xiang Nan carefully picked the 2 strands of thunder blast fruits and separated them. There were a total of 40 of them. Just as he was delighted, a ray of light appeared behind the thunder explosion fruit vine, causing Xiang Nan to be even more overjoyed. Thunderbolt vine. My God, it's actually a 3rd grade. Xiang Nan's eyes widened. He took off the thunderbolt vine and his heart was filled with delight. Originally, he wanted to find a 2nd-grade thunderbolt vine, but he didn't expect to find a better 3rd-grade thunderbolt vine. With this Tier 3 thunderbolt vine, the lightning resistance he had to temper was definitely better than he had expected. Alright, since you found what you want, hurry up and leave. Seeing that Xiang Nan was so happy, the woman smiled infected. Thank you. After Xiang Nan put away the thunderbolt vine, he nodded to the woman sincerely. The woman smiled and pulled little Yuer out. The demon spirit powder is still half an hour away. If we don't stop, there will still be plenty of time. Big brother. Little Yuer grabbed Xiang Nan's hand, raised her head and blinked her big sparkling eyes. Can I have some grapes for little Yuer? Xiang Nan smiled and pinched little Yuer's nose. The grapes can't be eaten. It's very hot. Little Yuer wrinkled her nose and said, Chi, you're stingy. The woman watched from the side and burst into laughter. The atmosphere between the 3 of them became even more harmonious, and they quickly left the shining jungle. However, not long after she left the flashing forest, little Yuer suddenly stood still. She slowly opened her mouth wide and coughed. Her beautiful face turned pale blue. Yuer, what's wrong with you? Xiang Nan panicked and hurriedly grabbed little Yuer's hand. Get out of the way. The woman suddenly seemed to have gone crazy. She threw Xiang Nan aside. She hurriedly placed little Yuer on the ground and said anxiously, Why is it happening here? Sister. I'm cold. Little Yuer's expression was extremely painful. In just a few seconds, a layer of frost had formed on her body. Her cute little face had changed from light blue to dark blue, and her pair of big eyes were covered with frost. The strange low temperature circled around little Yuer, making her breathing even harder, and her heart almost stopped beating. Xiang Nan was stunned. He had never seen such a strange symptom before. What kind of illness was this? The woman, on the other hand, was familiar with little Yuer's work. She sat behind little Yuer and quickly rubbed her hands together. She immediately put them on little Yuer's back. In this way, she poured thick and dense yuan qi into little Yuer's body without any hesitation. Xiang Nan was shocked to see this scene and realized that little Yuer's illness was too strange. The woman continuously poured a large amount of yuan qi into little Yuer's body. Normally speaking, that massive amount of yuan qi was enough to blow up a origin returning realm martial artist. However, the yuan qi that entered little Yuer's body only slightly slowed down little Yuer's freezing speed. At this moment, little Yuer didn't even have the slightest bit of aura, as if she was a dead person. The woman shed tears. She clenched her teeth and sent more yuan qi into little Yuer's body like crazy. Yuer, don't be afraid. With Big Sister here, Big Sister won't let Yuer die. Big Sister. Big Sister will definitely protect Yuer. The woman cried as she spoke, choking her throat. Xiang Nan's nose turned sour and his eyes turned red. But at this moment, the bushes beside him suddenly shook, and the shadow of a colossus appeared. Wind Bull. Xiang Nan felt as if his brain was going to explode. Why did that damned Wind Bull appear at this time? At this moment, the woman was continuously injecting Yuan Qi into little Yuer's body. She could not be disturbed at all. Otherwise, she and little Yuer might both die. This situation was really urgent. The woman anxiously swept a glance at Xiang Nan. She wanted to speak, but unexpectedly, Xiang Nan turned around and ran away without saying a word. Xiang Nan quickly rushed out of the dense jungle and disappeared. Seeing this, the woman let out a miserable laugh. She shook her head, and all her words turned into a mouthful of silent sighs. As for the Origin Realm Wind Bull, it seemed to have smelled the fragrance of the woman's Yuan Qi. It actually knew that the woman was unable to move at this moment, so it spat out an excited white qi from its nose. The Wind Bull's hooves moved twice on the ground before rushing towards the woman and Xiao Yuer. The woman's face was ashen as she shook her head in desolation. Boom! Suddenly, a ball of flame exploded on the right side of the Wind Bull's body. The violent impact forcefully knocked the Wind Bull out. The woman was delighted and saw Xiang Nan's face through the cracks in the bushes. Xiang Nan's expression was extremely serious as he quickly said, "Don't be distracted." Quickly suppressed the ice cold for little Yuer. In Xiang Nan's hand, there was a thunder explosion fruit. Chapter 35 Fearless and Fearless. The lightning burst fruit couldn't really harm the Wind Bull. The Wind Bull jumped up from the ground, its eyes turning incomparably red. Obviously, it was enraged by Xiang Nan. The enormous Wind Bull lowered its head and aimed a pair of sharp horns at Xiang Nan. Its forehooves moved and it turned into a gust of wind that charged towards Xiang Nan. So fast! Xiang Nan's pupils constricted, and he shot backwards with all his might. At the same time, he threw a lightning burst fruit towards the Wind Bull. The thunder explosion fruit directly exploded above the Wind Bull's head, but it was unable to overturn the furious Wind Bull. The Wind Bull's speed only paused for a moment before quickly returning to its original speed and shooting towards Xiang Nan with a whoosh. Xiang Nan, a small Xiantian third-layer martial artist, was so stressed that he couldn't breathe when facing an enraged first-level Origin returning Wind Bull. That Wind Bull came too quickly. Xiang Nan was in a hurry, so he could only mobilize the power of lightning to push his Peng's voice out. At this moment, the Wind Bull brushed past Xiang Nan and rubbed his shoulder with its thick body. Even though it was just a scratch, Xiang Nan still felt as if he had been smashed by a mountain. His bones all over his body twitched violently a few times, and a mouthful of sweet blood oozed out from his throat. However, Xiang Nan's jump was fast enough and far enough. The Wind Bull lost Xiang Nan's target and turned around to run towards the woman and the little Yuer sisters. The woman saw the Wind Bull getting closer and closer, and a look of despair appeared on her face. But at this moment, a whoosh rang out. Boom! The Wind Bull's body was struck by the lightning blast fruit and was once again blown off course, smashing horizontally into a giant tree surrounded by 5 people. The giant tree was instantly smashed apart, and wood chips scattered everywhere. Xiang Nan jumped out and wiped a mouthful of blood from the corner of his mouth. "Stupid cow, come and play with Grandpa. Your target is me." The Wind Bull jumped up furiously and charged towards Xiang Nan. The attributes of the wind element allowed it to be incredibly powerful, but at the same time, it was also extremely fast. This charge caused afterimages to appear on the enormous bull's body. "Be careful!" the woman cried out worriedly. Xiang Nan once again used the power of lightning to pour power into his feet and leap out horizontally. However, in midair, although the horns of the bull's head could not penetrate Xiang Nan's stomach, the bull's body once again rubbed against Xiang Nan's shoulder. This rubbing caused Xiang Nan to be directly smashed into an afterimage. He flew out and smashed into several ancient trees in succession. The bull had knocked Xiang Nan far away. After discovering that he had lost track of Xiang Nan, he turned around to deal with the two sisters. This time, the wind bull's momentum was inevitable. Its nostrils were wide open, and it spat out white gas as it rushed forward. Boom! Another explosion exploded on the bull's shoulder, sending him flying. Xiang Nan jumped out again from nowhere. He kept coughing and coughed out a mess of blood every time. Really hard. Xiang Nan let out a few painful groans and ripped off the long robe that had been torn into rags, revealing the black snake skin armor inside. If it wasn't for the protection of the black snake leather armor, just the collision of the Gui Yuan first wind bull would have been enough to shatter Xiang Nan's body. Pfft! Xiang Nan spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva and said, "With this daddy here, you can't touch any of their sisters." As he said that, Xiang Nan heavily punched his chest. "Come on, you damn stupid cow, I'll play with you to the end." Unfortunately, Xiang Nan thought to himself, thunderclap was a large-scale attack. In order to avoid injuring the two sisters, there was no way to use it here. The woman looked at Xiang Nan in shock. Seeing Xiang Nan in such a sorry state, yet he was so tenacious, a layer of gentle light gradually appeared in her eyes. That wind bull is really going crazy. It jumped up and down violently on the spot, throwing out a fierce beef temper, and then rushed towards Xiang Nan crazily. This time, it was really furious to the point of hysteria. It let out a moo roar from its throat. The strength of this charge was unprecedentedly great. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth. He knew that he could not dodge the charge of the wind bull no matter what, so he grabbed 10 lightning explosive fruits in one go and threw them all at the wind bull. "You're crazy!" The woman cried out, "You'll blow yourself up." 10 lightning explosive fruits exploded above the wind bull's head. Xiang Nan's calculations were very good. The two sisters happened to be behind the wind bull, at the dead end of the explosion of the thunder explosion fruit. At the same time, Xiang Nan used all of his strength to set up a weather shield in front of him. The first day the power of lightning was activated, and the surface of the shield crackled. However, a protective shield of this level was useless against the wind bull's charge. However, what Xiang Nan wanted was not to resist the wind bull's charge, but the explosive fire wave instantly engulfed Feng Niu and Xiang Nan, and the fire wave landed on the protective shield, sending Xiang Nan flying. As Xiang Nan flew backwards, he felt as if his entire body had been knocked apart. He felt extremely painful, and even his mind started to buzz. His consciousness began to blur. Fortunately, getting blown up is much better than getting hit by that wind bull. Not only did the 10 lightning blast fruits send Xiang Nan flying, they also sent the wind bull flying. Its sturdy body flew through the air and fell heavily into the distant jungle. At this moment, the dark blue color on little Yuer's face had already turned pale blue. Her nose also had a weak aura, and she was about to recover. However, the horrifying wind bull at the first level of the origin realm actually jumped back. After being bombarded by 10 lightning explosive fruits, this wind bull actually didn't injure its muscles and bones. However, there were some faint black horn marks on its fur. This bull's defense was much stronger than that of a human martial artist of the same realm. It looked around furiously, wanting to find traces of Xiang Nan, but after searching for a long time, it didn't see anything. As a result, its scarlet eyes were aimed at the two sisters. Just as it was about to dig its front hooves and charge at its sisters, something suddenly flew over from the sky. It was a translucent fruit. This time, the fruit was not shot over, but rather, it powerlessly drew an arc in the air and landed on the back of the wind bull. Boom! The fruit exploded, but due to a problem with the angle, the wind bull only shook its body a few times and did not overturn it. The dense bushes rustled, and Xiang Nan appeared again. He dragged his miserable body out step by step. The black snake skin armor on his body had long since disappeared. It was estimated that it had been shattered by the intense explosive impact. Even Xiang Nan couldn't stand up straight anymore. His skin was cracked and blood seeped out from all over his body. He just stood there and his body kept waving. "Come, come." Xiang Nan chuckled, wiping the blood from the corner of his eyes and patting his chest. "I haven't had enough fun yet, cough cough." A large mouthful of blood was coughed to the ground. Chapter 36 Trust. The wind bull was already a little dumbfounded. It stared at Xiang Nan with its eyes wide open. It must be thinking, what was going on with this tiny human? However, the demonic beast did not think too much. Since it did not understand, it raised its horns and decided to give Xiang Nan a final fatal blow. Just as the wind bull was about to charge forward, Xiang Nan finally knelt down on one knee because of exhaustion. He had blood in his mouth, but he was still smiling. Can you kill this, daddy? It's also considered great fortune for you. Once upon a time, the number one genius in the starry sky would be killed by a small origin realm wind bull. I wonder what kind of virtue that wind bull had accumulated in his previous life. However, Xiang Nan looked at little Yuer and thought to himself, although I have the intention to seek revenge on Xian Qingzhu and her daughter, but I really can't bear to see little Yuer killed. She's still so young. The wind bull had already begun to charge. Facing the charging wind bull, Xiang Nan spread out his arms and said, "If I want to die, I will also die in a frontal battle. I will never escape." However, before the wind bull could charge over, Xiang Nan's body shook and he lost consciousness. The intense pain caused Xiang Nan to wake up from his coma. He immediately jumped up and shouted, "Come on, you damn, huh?" He suddenly realized that he was actually standing on the bed, with the quilt that had just been knocked over beneath his feet. The quilt was pink and emitted a faint fragrance of daughter. What kind of place is this? Xiang Nan looked at himself in surprise and found that he had changed into a new personal garment. He opened his clothes and looked again. A large number of dense cracks on his body were also smeared with ointment that emitted a faint medicinal fragrance. Looking at the surroundings, it was clearly the daughter's boudoir. At this moment, the door was pushed open with a creak, and a graceful figure stepped in. It was a woman. She had a pair of big eyes, but the corners of her eyes were tilted upwards. These eyes were called fox eyes, and they carried an indissoluble charm. Her little nose was curved up, her lips were red, and the corners of her mouth drew a soul-stirring arc. Her cheeks curved perfectly, but there was also an inexplicable temptation mixed within them, coupled with that long and graceful snow neck. Xiang Nan had seen many peerless beauties, even Xian Qingzhu, who could be called the number one beauty in the 9 firmaments continent. However, every beauty had her own style, and the beauty of this woman was a kind of seductiveness that was different from that of ordinary people. It belonged to an unquenchable desire that would arise from the depths of one's heart when one looked at it. Xiang Nan was stunned for a moment. This woman made him feel very unfamiliar. "You're awake." The woman smiled. "It's you." Xiang Nan was stunned. This was actually the mysterious woman. She took off her veil. "Can't recognize me?" She put her two slender, white and tender fingers around the corner of her eyes and said, "You should recognize these eyes. So it's like this." Xiang Nan suddenly came to a realization. No wonder. It turned out that this woman had disguised herself on her eyes. Her real eyes were the fox's eyes. "Where's little Yuer? How is she?" Xiang Nan shook his head and hurriedly asked. The woman said gratefully, "Yuer is fine now, thanks to you." "That's good." Xiang Nan breathed a sigh of relief, but he always felt that this woman's manner did not match her appearance. This woman could be said to be calm and dignified, giving people the feeling of maturity without losing the style of a big family. However, her appearance was not like this. Perhaps this was the reason why she covered her face. The woman walked to the window with a light lotus step and placed her hand on Xiang Nan's shoulder. "You're not well yet. Lie down and rest. I'll bring you a bowl of soup." Her approach brought with it a faint fragrance of daughter, filled with Xiang Nan's sense of smell. There was nothing wrong with this action, but her appearance gave her a foxy smell. Xiang Nan's eyes were blank. You really are that woman? Why don't you feel like it?" The woman used a finger to lightly tap Xiang Nan's forehead. "It's really me." "All right, quickly rest for a while, my hero." After saying that, the woman turned around and walked out of the room. Xiang Nan sat on the bed and scratched his head. "Big hero? What's the matter? Did she take the wrong medicine?" However, after a while, this woman returned with a bowl of soup. Furthermore, under Xiang Nan's uncomfortable circumstances, she had to personally feed Xiang Nan a cup of soup. She sat at the head of the bed and looked down at Xiang Nan. Suddenly, she said softly, "Did you know that no one has ever protected little Yuer so recklessly? Although you are only a small Xiantian third-layer martial artist, what you have done in the Black Sharp Demon Forest is more courageous than all the men I know. It's not as exaggerated as you said." Xiang Nan drank the bitter soup and said, "I'm in such a sorry state because I'm not strong enough. That's why I look so heroic." The woman smiled and shook her head, "But it is precisely because you are weak that you dare to stand up to that wind bull again and again, that makes you even braver, isn't it? The moment you spread out your arms and stood in front of the wind bull, I felt that you were the bravest hero in the world, the hero of me and little Yuer." Xiang Nan felt that there was something wrong with the woman's tone. He felt a little embarrassed and changed the topic. "What happened to little Yuer?" Hearing this, the woman smiled bitterly. "Yuer has been suffering from a strange disease since she was born. At first, she would attack once a month. When she attacked, her entire body would be incomparably icy cold. Every time she attacked, her life would be in danger. In order to treat Yuer, we used all the methods we could think of, but none of them worked. In recent years, the frequency of Yuer's illness has become higher and higher, becoming more and more serious. Although our clan has used all their strength, it is still unable to cure her. Some of our clan's elders even advised me to give up." The woman sniffled and wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes, "But I refuse. Little Yuer is my life." "So you took her away from the clan and went to seek medical attention?" Xiang Nan's heart was filled with emotions. This was also a bitter woman. At the same time, Xiang Nan was deeply moved by the woman's feelings for her sister. The woman said softly, "I've traveled almost all over the continent. As long as I can cure Yuer, I'm willing to give everything I have. Xiang Nan let out a long sigh and suddenly laughed. Could it be that only lightning meridian martial artists can cure Yuer's illness? So you brought that black saber and searched everywhere to find a lightning meridian martial artist? The woman nodded. Don't worry, I know what the lightning meridian attribute means to a martial artist. You've done enough for our sisters. I won't ask you to risk your life to help us anymore. Can I trust you? Xiang Nan asked. Chapter 37 Omnidirectional Test. The woman looked at Xiang Nan and said, if there is only one person left in this world that you can trust, then this person must be me now. Xiang Nan nodded. That's enough. I'm willing to help you. You. The woman sobbed with joy, are you really willing? Xiang Nan curled his lips. I'm not as selfish as you think. I know, I believe it. The woman nodded her head forcefully, you rest for half a day. I'll come to see you in the morning and talk about Yuer's illness. When she took the medicine bowl from Xiang Nan, her fingertips accidentally touched Xiang Nan's hand, but a red cloud flew up on her charming face. I'm Huanpu Ruyan and my sister's name is Huanpu Ruoyu, she whispered as she pulled open the door and stepped out. Looking at the closed door, Xiang Nan sighed, I only heard of the Huanpu clan in my previous life. I never thought that I would get to know them in this life. I wonder if this is a good thing or a bad thing for me. In his mind, he gradually recalled what his master had said to him in his previous life. The Huanpu aristocrat clan is an ancient clan that has lasted for thousands of years. Every generation of patriarch of this clan is a person who stomps his feet, causing the entire world to tremble. Mu Chen, try not to get too involved with this clan. At the very least, don't be hostile to them. The next day, Xiang Nan's health greatly improved. He did not want to stay in his room, so he came out to exercise. Only then did he realize that this was a manor located in the outer suburbs of Bluestone City, and it could be said to be a beautiful scenery with beautiful birds singing and flowers singing. Xiang Nan took a deep breath and stretched his body. He felt that his skin injury had basically healed. Only his muscles and bones still had some injuries. He needed to recuperate for a few days before he could fully recover. How is your health? Beside an artificial stream, Huanpu Ruyan walked over from the willow forest with a smile. Much better. Looks like you've used a lot of precious spiritual herbs for me, Xiang Nan said. Compared to what you've done for our sisters, what I've done isn't worth mentioning. Huanpu Ruyan held a bowl of soup in her hand, here, drink it. Xiang Nan took a sip and said, since there's no problem, let's quickly think of a way to save little Yuer. Ruyan smiled and nodded, I'm ready. Follow me. The two of them passed through the willow forest and arrived at a rockery. The rockery was very big, and it was actually a hidden mechanism. Ruyan activated the mechanism and the entire rockery moved out, revealing the entrance to an underground cave. The two entered the cave downwards, hiding an extremely open secret chamber in the deepest part of the cave. Xiang Nan looked around. This secret room was a training ground. All kinds of tools and facilities needed for cultivation should be available. Xiang Nan noticed that there were two things on the opposite wall of the secret training ground. One was a pill furnace, and the other was a human-shaped stone. Seeing the stone, Xiang Nanqi said, you have a spirit testing stone. That's great. Ruyan smiled faintly, that spirit testing stone can only detect attacks below the heaven origin realm at most. You can use it. Right, before that, I have something for you. As she spoke, Ruyan took out 3 items from her storage ring. They were a black saber, a set of black armor, and a book. You want to give these to me? Xiang Nan asked curiously. He had already seen the black saber, but this was the first time he had seen the black armor in books. Ruyen pointed at the black saber first and said, "This saber is called Black Scales, while the soft armor next to it is called Ink Spot. This saber and armor are compatible. As long as you absorb the power of the lightning meridian attribute into it, its grade will naturally increase. As far as I know, the limit they can reach is Earth Grade Beginner Stage." Earth Grade? Xiang Nan asked in surprise, "Such a high level? I'm afraid the entire Blue Stone City will never find such a high-grade weapon or armor again." Ruyen said, "Your current realm is still relatively low. Under normal circumstances, you can upgrade the Black Scale Chui to the intermediate spirit stage. When it explodes, you can reach the high spirit stage. There's also this book. It's a secret manual of its own. It's called Flash Shadow Steps. It's an Earth-grade elementary movement technique. It can be activated through the power of the Lightning Meridian attribute." Another Earth grade. Xiang Nan sucked in a breath of cold air. This secret manual was too precious. This was because, generally speaking, movement technique manuals were rarer than cultivation technique manuals. A local grade movement technique manuals were far more valuable than an Earth grade cultivation technique manuals. Ruyen said, "These past few years, I've brought you around to search for Lightning Vein attribute martial artists. I've also collected these 3 items related to Lightning Vein, and it just so happens to be for you, young Master Xiang." Xiang Nan was not a hypocrite. If someone else gave it to him, he would accept it impolitely. Ruyen said, "You wanted to use the spirit testing stone just now, right? I'll help you test your current state together. I just want to know more about my combat strength." Xiang Nan stretched his muscles and bones, full of energy. The humanoid spirit stone was transported to the center of the training ground. Ruyen took a notebook and stood at the side. "Now, test your normal strength." Xiang Nan raised his hand and punched the spirit testing stone. The spirit testing stone trembled a few times. Ruyen carefully observed the situation of the spirit testing stones, wrote and drew in the notebook, and reported several times, "Normal strength is 2300 Jin. Next, the limit strength is tested." Xiang Nan transformed his strength into thunder and lightning, instantly increasing his strength by 3 times. With a punch, the spirit testing stone was knocked back by the impact and slipped back an inch. Ruyen nodded and said, 7,000 Jin, about 3 times the normal strength. Now, let's test the power of the normal weather first. After careful testing, Xiang Nan came up with the following figures. Currently, Xiang Nan was a Xiantian 3rd layer martial artist. The normal strength was 2300 Jin, and the maximum explosive strength was 7000 Jin. Normally, the power of the first weather was 2300 Jin, converting the first weather into thunder and lightning, and then 3500 Jin. The thunder and lightning attribute erupted to the limit of 9000 Jin. After Xiang Nan used the precious power of lightning, his strength was 13,000 Jin. Since Ruyen already knew about Xiang Nan's lightning vein attributes, Xiang Nan didn't even conceal the fire thunder technique and immediately tested the power of the thunderclap S. The thunderclap waves he used with the power of thunder and lightning completely drained the power of thunder and lightning in one go. Its lethality was 35,000 Jin. The lethality of the thunderclap waves he activated with the power of lightning was 90,000 Jin. Even Xiang Nan himself was shocked. At first, he didn't think much of it, but now that he had obtained the exact value, he knew that the power of lightning and thunderclap S were so abnormal. How is it? Xiang Nan leaned weakly against the wall, for he had used up all his previous weather and lightning power. Ruyen was first shocked, then frowned. To tell the truth, both joy and sorrow are mixed. Chapter 38 Life-Saving Pill. Ruyen said, "Your explosive power is so strong that people can't believe it. But at the same time, it's also your weakness. Because your cultivation level is too low, you have to use the limit burst to defeat your enemies when fighting against others. The limit burst means that you are overloaded." Ruyen looked at Xiang Nan seriously and said, "Whether it's strength, weather, lightning, or martial arts, you need to explode to the limit. But your own Dantian only has that little capacity. It's simply not enough." "Yes." Xiang Nan sighed, "That's why I urgently want to improve my cultivation." Ruyen nodded, So when you fight someone, try not to use it without exploding. This is not to conceal your strength, but to be able to fight for a longer period of time. But I still have something to tell you." Ruyen raised her flash shadow steps and said, "This local grade elementary movement technique is too high, so it is also very terrifying to your physical strength consumption. Next, let's test your speed." Xiang Nan rested for a while and began to test his speed. He got a result. Based on the Xiantian 3 Dan test, Xiang Nan normally sprinted at 20 meters per second. Medium speed sprint, 30 meters per second. The maximum charge was 40 meters per second. Thunder and lightning poured into his feet, and the explosive charge was 100 meters per second. Ruyen nodded her head and said, "I've seen the flash shadow steps. This earth-grade movement technique can increase the movement speed of a Xiantian realm martial artist by 5 times. Because this movement technique requires the power of thunder and lightning, you will be able to use the flash shadow steps to reach 500 meters per second. As for the shadow steps, they can increase the speed of Origin realm martial artists by 4 times, Heaven Origin realm martial artists by 3 times, and Heaven Scryer realm martial artists by 2 times. Xiang Nan said, "In other words, I can only use this flash shadow step to the Heaven Origin realm. It won't be of much use in the future." Ruyen said, "Of course, these speed values are based on your Xiantian 3rd layer. If you reach the Xiantian 4th or 5th layer, your normal speed will increase." "Yes, but can the Xiantian realm be increased by 5 times?" Xiang Nan smiled. A 5-fold short-range movement was definitely at the overlord level in this realm. What was the concept of 500 meters in a second? There would definitely be afterimages in the sprint. Moreover, his speed had already surpassed that of the 3rd level Origin returning Wind Bull. As for defense, Ruyen held the black armor and said, "This black armor can only provide you with a proportional amount of defense. That is to say, if the enemy uses 10,000 gene of power to smash you, Ink Spot can absorb 3,000 gene of power for you, but if the enemy uses only 10,000 gene of power to smash you, it can absorb 3,000 gene for you." "Oh. I understand." Suddenly, Xiang Nan said, "So this is the defensive mode of the defensive armor." Not only was Xiang Nan not disappointed, he was also very happy. Because of Mo Ban's defensive properties, Xiang Nan would be able to enjoy its benefits in any day-to-day battles. Unlike the black snake leather armor, it would only work when faced with a fatal blow. At the same time, this ink-stained armor was not easily damaged. Then, Xiang Nan increased the power of his weapon once more. Xiang Nan's normal strength was 2,300 gene, and his limit was 7,000 gene. However, after he grabbed the giant black scale saber, the value remained unchanged. On the other hand, Xiang Nan's normal initial weather strength was 2,300 gene, and after using the black scale, it was 3,000 gene. The lightning attribute was 3,500 gene of weather power first, and 4,000 gene after using the black scale. Xiang Nan considered the black scale and said, as expected, a weapon with intelligence can only increase the power of the weather. Yes. Ruyan nodded and said, but something like saber chi cannot be measured by strength alone. It involves the sharpness of saber chi, the characteristics of cultivation techniques, and how high and complex a specific martial skill is. This is not going to be introduced here. Naturally, Xiang Nan was very clear about this, so he didn't say anything else. The more he looked at the black scale, the more he liked it. This huge saber had a calm and reserved aura, and it was a big coincidence that it didn't work. It won Xiang Nan's favor. I've finished all my questions. Now, let's talk about little Yuer. Xiang Nan put away all the treasures. Ruyan smiled and took out hundreds of spirit herbs from her storage ring. Xiang Nan was dumbfounded. These spirit herbs were priceless and rare in the market. Ru Yen said, an imperial physician once told me that to cure Yuer's illness, one must rely on the lightning meridian attribute of the weather or Yuan Qi to refine pills. Although we are only practicing third-grade pills, we still have to wait. I have already sent a message to ask the family alchemist for help. Alchemy? Xiang Nan smiled and said, then don't bother your family members. I can do it. You. Ruyan said happily, how many surprises are you hiding? The more I dig, the more I will discover that you are unfathomable. Tier 3 medicinal pills weren't too high grade. Xiang Nan was confident that he could easily obtain them, and he could guarantee that they were all top-grade Tier 3 medicinal pills. Immediately, the two of them ignited the pill furnace in the training room. Ruyan personally controlled the fire and released a ball of Yuan Qi. The Yuan Qi burned into Yuan Qi flames and directly burned the bottom of the pill furnace. This matter concerned her younger sister's life and death. Ruyan also became nervous as never before. Soon, fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. She nervously looked at Xiang Nan and said, okay. No problem. Xiang Nan smiled confidently. According to the formula provided by Ruyan, he divided the 100 pills into 10 batches and put them into 10 batches. Following that, Xiang Nan used the power of thunder and lightning to enter the pill furnace, accurately controlling every tiny bit of change inside. To tell the truth, Ruyan was still very nervous at the beginning, because it was an extremely complicated process to train 100 kinds of spirit herbs together. As long as there was a single mistake, all the spirit herbs would be burned to the ground. However, as Xiang Nan's pill refining progress deepened, the expression on her face changed from nervousness to relaxation, then to surprise, then to disbelief, and finally to shock. More than 100 spiritual herbs were put into the pill furnace one after another, and not a single spiritual herb had gone wrong. My God! Ruyan was incomparably shocked. Young Master Xiang's control over the temperature of alchemy is simply comparable to an empire alchemist. No, even more terrifying than an empire alchemist. Boom! The top of the furnace opened and a batch of fresh pills appeared. Every pill was glowing with a faint red light. It was indeed a third-grade pill, and it was a top-grade pill amongst top-grade pills. Ruyan held these pills and cried out in joy, I finally got them. After years of hard work, I finally saw hope. Xiang Nan wiped his sweat and looked at it. There are almost 300, right? Is it enough? Ruyan nodded excitedly, enough, enough. 100 is enough. Young Master Xiang, I don't know how to thank you. Chapter 39 Raise rapidly. Xiang Nan waved his hand and said, it's too unusual to tell me this now. Ruyan shook her head seriously and said, "No, you saved Yuer, that's equivalent to saving my life. Ruyan will never forget such a great kindness. There are 3 signaling orders. They are filled with my blood and Yuan Qi. You can send me a message at any time." Xiang Nan took the message and put it away solemnly. "Go, hurry up and give little Yuer some pills." "I have to go home," he said. The 2 of them were separated at the manor. Xiang Nan received a wind-chasing horse and hurried back to Bluestone Town. The wind-chasing stallion was a Xiantian first-stage demonic beast. It could use demonic energy to run wildly for a long distance. Its speed was comparable to the speed of a Xiantian realm martial artist. It was an extremely expensive item. This wind-chasing colt was especially sturdy. Its head was 2 zhang long from head to tail, and its hooves were 8 feet tall from back. Its entire body was pitch black, and it was extremely mighty. Xiang Nan rode on the wind-chasing stallion and rode on the wind. He could only feel the scenery on both sides rapidly retreating. After returning to the Xiang Manor, he took a quick look and chatted with his mother for a while before rushing to the Black Sharp Mountain Range. The Xiang clan's industry was rising methodically. There was no need for Xiang Nan to worry about all of this. What he needed to do now was to find a place where no one else could help him improve his resistance to electricity. The overlapping Black Sharp Mountain Range. Here, Xiang Nan easily found a deserted place. After arranging the necessary appliances, he took 3 deep breaths in a row. "It's about to start. I hope that I can get a big improvement this time. It's worthy of my hard work in searching for materials." After seeing that there was no one around, he used the 3-meter-tall black-scaled heavy knife to dig a large pit that was 20 meters deep on the ground. This pit had already penetrated deep into the interior of the mountain. Then, he put the pill furnace into the pit, jumped into the pill furnace himself, and buried the soil above in the first day. After confirming that he was safe and sound, Xiang Nan nodded in satisfaction. He was in the darkness of the pill furnace and put a stone skin pill into his mouth. That crazy alchemist said that refining a martial artist into a pill would have an unexpected effect. I hope what he said is correct. Xiang Nan was somewhat uneasy, but there was no turning back now. He slammed his hands on the inner wall of the furnace, causing the fire inside the furnace to instantly burst into flames. A human, even if he was a Xiantian realm martial artist, would not be able to survive in the midst of the flames. Therefore, Xiang Nan used the stone skin pill. This pill was extremely effective, causing Xiang Nan's skin to be petrified within the next 2 hours, thus guaranteeing that it would not be burned to death. Then, there were all sorts of other spirit herb pills that were either orderly consumed or used to smear the body. Even so, as his body refinement progress increased, Xiang Nan also began to feel his body burning hot, and his suffocation became more and more severe. Fortunately, with the help of the rejuvenation pill, the powerful medicinal properties allowed him to get rid of his dependence on the air, while the snow cicada grass cooled his body. Finally, it was a 3rd-grade thunderbolt vine. Plants had an incomparable tolerance for nature. Plants could be found in almost every corner of the world. They could adapt to any harsh natural environment. The thunderbolt vine was a special spiritual herb that grew up in the baptism of thunder and lightning all year round. This time, Xiang Nan slowly fused the lightning resistance of the thunderbolt vine into his human body. The flames inside the pill furnace became even more intense. Xiang Nantong's body turned red, as if he was a human-shaped sculpture that had been burned red. The lightning resistance of the thunderbolt vine penetrated into his skin, entering his bone essence and organs. At the end of the refinement, Xiang Nan's entire face flushed red. He gritted his teeth and endured unimaginable pain. He thought to himself, "It's almost done. I've practiced almost all the bones in my body. In the end, I only have my dantian and meridians left." At this moment, the Shifu pill still had 10 minutes left to act. The Thunderbolt Vine's powerful electric resistance swiftly flowed through Xiang Nan's body. Xiang Nan's eyes suddenly opened, and a flash of lightning flashed in his eyes. The power of thunder and lightning was activated to its limit. Instantly, an arc of lightning that was rarely seen by the naked eye wrapped around Xiang Nan's entire body. First, the weather had condensed into thunder and lightning attributes. It started from its dantian with the medicinal properties of the Thunderbolt Vine and swam to every meridian structure in its body. At this point, after swimming for 2 whole cycles, the medicinal properties of the Thunderbolt Vine were finally completely absorbed by Xiang Nan. Boom! The top of the pill furnace opened, and the dirt from the pill furnace was directly lifted into the sky. Immediately after, a figure soared into the sky. Xiang Nan rolled over in midair and landed on the ground. Within the storage ring, the pill furnace had just landed. Success! Xiang Nan looked at his body excitedly. He found that his skin became more smooth and lustrous, like a newborn baby. I didn't expect that this body refinement would not only increase my resistance to electricity, but also eliminate a lot of impurities from my body. Xiang Nan chuckled. Looks like his harvest this time was not small. The next step was to continue absorbing the lightning arc power of the white flame lightning. After he was fully prepared, he tossed the lightning talisman into the air and muttered to himself, "Every time his realm rises, the difficulty will greatly increase. I wonder if this advancement will allow him to jump 2 small realms in a row like last time." As he spoke, he still circulated the 9 transformations lightning shocking art. The powerful summoning power in his body was summoning the white flame lightning. In an instant, the lightning talisman cracked. Layers of white lightning visible to the naked eye wrapped around the lightning talisman. The surrounding wind roared loudly, and all the trees were shattered. I wonder how long it will take to truly absorb the lightning source of the lightning. Xiang Nan let out a breath and casually waved his hand, causing a white lightning bolt to fly over. After the lightning bolt touched Xiang Nan's body, Xiang Nan's eyes widened, and a wisp of intense lightning flashed in his eyes. In less than an instant, the power of the lightning arc had completely penetrated every inch of Xiang Nan's skin, muscles, and bones. Indeed. Xiang Nan snorted in pain, his expression slightly twisted. This arc belonged to the second arc. Last time, it completely failed to absorb the second arc. And this time, the resistance to electricity really worked. Xiang Nan could clearly feel the pain he had endured, but it was much better than last time. At least his muscles haven't spasmed yet. The terrifying lightning power contained in that arc was even more intense and mellow than the first. It's starting. Xiang Nan's pupils contracted, and he felt his realm loosen. Xiantian 3rd layer. Xiantian 4th layer. Breakthrough. So fast. Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. The distance between the 3rd level and the 4th level was much greater than the distance between the 2nd level and the 3rd level. Even so, he still managed to cross over so quickly. Chapter 40 accomplished something. However, the power of this lightning arc was still more than 90%, and it had not yet been absorbed by Xiang Nan. As for the pain he suffered, it weakened slightly due to his higher cultivation realm. However, this weakening was just a drop in the bucket. Get through it. You must get through it. The corners of Xiang Nan's mouth twitched and his muscles began to unconsciously spasm. The violent power of lightning was frantically activating Xiang Nan's realm. Xiantian 5th layer. 2 small realms. Xiang Nan was so miserable that he could no longer speak, so he could only mutter to himself in his heart. However, nearly 90% of the lightning bolts were still inside Xiang Nan's body, waiting for him to be accepted. This second bolt of lightning is much more powerful than the first. Xiang Nan was shocked. One small realm increase had already filled Xiang Nan's body, while the 2 small realms had completely saturated his body. Do you want to hold on? Perhaps he could break through to another small realm. He had the intention to stop, but the 5th level of Xiantian was still not enough. Forget it, you have to suffer bitterly before you can be a master. Only if others didn't dare to do so would they be able to become true experts. I don't believe it. Xiang Nan clenched his teeth. Both rows of silver teeth were about to collapse. He roared in his heart, divine grade talent is definitely not that bad. I can hold on any longer. Ka 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 ka. Fine cracks appeared on his skin. Red blood seeped out from the cracks. When the cracks opened, a strange sound similar to that of a rock shattering could be heard. In fact, tears of blood flowed out of his eyes. I can hold on for a while longer. Aayawiawa. Xiang Nan suddenly opened his mouth and squeezed out a roar from his throat. Xiantian, 6th level. Success. I've really crossed 3 small realms. Ah, not good. Xiang Nan had only just arrived when he discovered a serious problem. He had already broken through the limits of what he could withstand, causing his consciousness to rapidly decline. At this moment, Xiang Nan panicked and paled, wanting to stop the circulation of the 9 transformations of thunder cultivation technique, only to discover that his consciousness had declined too quickly and was not enough. It's over. Before Xiang Nan lost consciousness, this was the only word that flashed through his mind. Boom! The lightning exploded, forming a ball of lightning that enveloped Xiang Nan's entire body. At this moment, Xiang Nan was lying flat at the core of the thunderball, fainting. Xiang Nan did not know how long he had been unconscious. He only realized that he had woken up many times in a daze. Every time he woke up, he could only last for a few seconds, and every time, he could feel pain like a purgatory. He was crazily destroyed by the power of lightning, as if he was in an eternal cycle of infernal hell. Even the moment he woke up, he realized that he hadn't really woken up. Instead, he was in a state of half awake and half dreaming. He felt that he was in an endless darkness, and there was only one feeling in his body: pain. The pain was so painful that he couldn't bear to live. His heart was torn apart, and he kept roaring in the darkness. He could vaguely feel that his body was on the verge of shattering. His skin had originally only cracked, but now it was shards of skin falling off his body. Blood stained him as a bloody man, his muscles showed signs of disintegration, and his internal organs quickly collapsed. I didn't expect to actually die in such a place because of greed. Xiang Nan sighed silently, but he didn't regret what he had done. If he didn't dare to fight, could he still be considered a man? Slowly, he felt that the pain in his body had subsided. Are you really going to die? Xiang Nan weakly remembered that he couldn't even feel the pain anymore. However, in reality, a miracle was happening. The skin fragments that had fallen off Xiang Nan's body had actually begun to return to his body. At that moment, Xiang Nan suddenly opened his eyes. He felt his skin and muscles tighten. Break and stand. Xiang Nan's eyes flashed with a bright light. He discovered that he was still at the center of the violent thunderball. Thus, he deduced that he had only fainted for a few seconds, but in the sensory world, it was as long as several decades. He didn't have time to sigh with emotion before decisively stopping the 9 transformations of thunder incantation. The tyrannical ball of lightning quickly disintegrated and turned into lightning bolts. The lightning bolts then disintegrated into smaller arcs and disappeared into the air. As for Xiang Nan, he suddenly leapt into the air and landed on the ground. Boom! This time, the landing was not violent, but it caused the ground to shake. Under his feet, there was actually a circular cracked hole. That hole was charred black. I still have a large amount of remnant lightning power in my body. Xiang Nan narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at the sky like a thunderclap. He protected the precious power of lightning in his dantian, and at the same time sucked out all the excess power of lightning in his body. Boom! A round of fan-shaped crystal blue light soared into the sky. The light exploded in midair, causing the wind to blow away the clouds in the sky. So strong. Xiang Nan's eyes widened. This was the strongest thunderclap he had ever released. It seemed like the truth was just as he had guessed. The power of this second bolt of lightning was far more powerful than the first bolt of lightning. Then, Xiang Nan's thoughts stirred. He waved his hand and drew a new arc, the third arc. However, he did not suck it into his body and only observed it carefully. The power of this third arc was extremely violent. It was countless times stronger than the second arc. Xiang Nan did not dare to attempt to absorb such a powerful arc. Strong again. Xiang Nan frowned. With the strength of my body that I have tempered now, I don't dare to touch this lightning bolt easily. However, he pondered for a moment. The formula he had just used to improve his resistance to electricity was already the most powerful prescription he had. Obviously, if he wanted to absorb the third arc, he had to find a stronger recipe. Xiang Nan didn't have any high-grade prescriptions, so he had to go to the library of some powerful sects to find them. Xiang Nan nodded. After the city selection, he could join a sect. At that time, he would have another chance. Now, he should start cultivating the flash shadow steps. He inserted the black scale into the ground and took out the shadow stepping technique to slowly watch. This technique itself belonged to the earthly grade beginner stage, and was a martial skill that was specifically used to move figures. It did not have any attack effects. Although it's complicated, it's easy to understand. Xiang Nan flipped through the shadow steps and nodded. In his previous life, he had cultivated countless more complicated cultivation methods, so this flash shadow step was nothing in his eyes. Novel Empire. Immortal God of Battle.